Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so let's go ahead and call to order the December 15 meeting of the Finance Committee. First, I'd like to call up for potential motions to approve the minutes of the December 8th meeting of the Finance Committee. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll just say this is a long set of minutes, more than 40 pages. Thank you very much. And actually 12 or 14 of that was actual dialogue. Some of that was the presentations from the administration's numerous presentations. So thank you to the council staff, Holly Fee, Danielle, and Maureen for preparing that and preparing a detailed and accurate public record. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and the ayes have it. Thank you. So we've got a packed agenda today. We've got 2 offices to hear presentations from. We've also, I'd like before doing anything else to move to the top of the agenda, the petty cash ordinance, just so that we get that disposed of. And thank you, Director Mahoney, for calling that to our attention. So that's items 8 and 9. I think that can be a short deliberation. Director Mahoney, could you briefly outline the proposed changes?
Sure, thank you. So we just did a review of the actual processes that we have and the needs for petty cash. There's 2 different things here. There's petty cash and there's change funds. So change is obviously, when you start a drawer up, your change. And that's what those operational or the change funds are. The other is the petty cash for small expenditures under $50, except with the exception of purchases for drugs. And those, as the chief had said, inflation hits everywhere, even in the drug world. So that's why that one was requested. That's the only one of any materiality to increase that, the ability to have funds for that to $10,000. But the rest is just very minimal. We also did an examination. For example, the mayor's department doesn't really need petty cash. They just come down to the finance, so to take those away. The health department is no longer, so we don't need that. And then just, like I said, operational change funds for startups.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council members? One question from me. So do we read this as the total across the table is the maximum amount in a given year, or is that the maximum amount at any one moment in time, so that, for example, a department may have expenditures monthly or weekly or something?
That is the balance. So, for example, in finance department, 700. Is that the new? Oh no, that's $1,000 in the finance department. So your total cash on hand plus receipts of expenditures that you've given out to people should always total $1,000. And then once it gets to a certain level, you write a check and replenish up to that $1,000. So
okay, so largely this is not this is a matter of form of currency and form of payment, and there's a finance department limit on all departments' use of cash. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. As opposed, so in other words, the finance department could spend the $1,000 more than once during the fiscal year.
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. So do we have a sense? I guess the answer would be, regardless of form of payment, the total expenditure for the city would not exceed what we're talking about in the rest of the budget ordinances. So
that's correct. It's just a part of the appropriations.
Okay. All right. That's helpful clarification to me. Councilman Strubig?
Thank you. Can you just, or Mayor, or Director Mahoney, can you just say a few words on why the police department is buying drugs?
To catch the criminals.
Oh.
Yeah, narcotics.
Thank you.
Yeah, undercover.
Undercover.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I'm happy to support a motion to recommend adoption of the proposed ordinance. So is there such a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2029-2025 for full council approval.
29-2025.
Yeah, 29-2025 for full council approval.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, so then let's proceed now on the agenda to the top of the order, which is the mayor's office budget presentation. If Mayor, you're prepared now, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, good evening. This begins the budget presentation for my office and community relations. On the first slide you see here is the organizational chart. You can see the organizational chart as well as the role of the mayor as the chief executive and the administrative officer of the city. So you can see that. 5 full-time employees, 3 right under the office of the mayor. And then Division of Community Relations, we have our community relations specialist and our public information officer. The budget is largely in line with 2025. You'll see some slight increases in salary, travel and communications, decrease in professional services, and we, as you'll be able to see on the next couple slides, we consistently operated within the 2025 budget. Here is a picture right from the budget document of our actuals going back to 2023, 2025 budgeted, and then 2026. So the salaries are much in line with the rest of the city, as well as fringe benefits. So just nominal increases there. Division of Community Relations. They are a very, very busy department. There were many successful community events this year. Those are all coordinated within community relations. Some of those mentioned on the slide: concerts in the park, Friday night flicks, Meet the Trucks, and so on. Also work with our nonprofits to facilitate successful implementation of their events as well. So all the Lakewood of Live sponsored events and all the Friends of Parks events. So we work with them to have a successful implementation of those. We're increasing our follower count on social media. On Facebook, there was an 8% increase, and Instagram, 25%. So we continue to work on improving communication wherever we can. We have the monthly e-newsletter that we started 2 or 3 years ago. We now have over 8,000 subscribers to that. So anyone listening today, if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe, because there's a lot of good information in that newsletter. We've done a printed newsletter. We've sent that out 3 times last year to all Lakewood residents and businesses. And we continue to work with the Cuyahoga County Read and Notify system to text, call, and email to residents during emergencies and so forth. 2026 and beyond, continue to build a wider audience for city messages, so continuing our social media presence and just continuing with overall communications. Continue to improve our quality and attendance of city events. And then our hope is to increase the number of direct printed and electronic communications with residents. Here you will see the Division of Community Relations, the budget going back to 2023 actual, 2024 actual, 2025 budgeted, and 2026 proposed, largely in line with other departments. And that is it. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the presentation. Any questions, council members?
I have one question.
Councilwoman Strebig.
Thank you. I'm looking at the Office of Civil Service. Does that also fall under your office, Mayor?
That's under law. Yeah, that's under law.
Under law. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate the statement you made that your current year budgeting fell within your allocation, that next year also you're proposing a modest increase within the realm of, you know, average inflation kind of levels. So I appreciate that. I don't have any questions. I do appreciate your continued focus on communications. I think I'm one of your Instagram and city followers on all the social medias, so I'll keep boosting that. Other council members?
I have one other question.
Okay, Councilman Strebe.
Thank you. With the 2026 strategic plan to increase the number of direct, printed, and electronic communications with our residents, does that include for block clubs? Could that be something that this division is responsible for?
Yes, so our public information officer is in charge of all communications that go out to residents. I think we've talked about the challenge with block clubs before, is that in this day and world with social media and email, it's harder to figure out what you would send something to a block club that you're just not going to provide to anyone. So that's still the challenge we face is, we've had discussions, we could create a block club newsletter, which there used to be. We just can't combine that into an all-city newsletter because, again, it's good information for everybody to have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't know that it's just like general information. I'm thinking too, how many years ago now was that blackout that we had? Was that 2 years ago now? To get information out to folks to say, we have a cooling center at Harrison. We have a cooling center now at Cove. That kind of emergency information. Instead of when no one has access to cell phones or any kind of electronics, to have people on the streets that we know that we could drop off flyers to, much like Clerk Bach did at my house, and I was handing them out to people that were walking by on Baxterly. I think that kind of boots on the ground is really important, and also, provides the connection to residents, which we know are endless benefits to when you're talking about senior citizens that may be living alone, people that are watching out for them on their street. I think that just the benefits of Block Club and to really get that going across the city again would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just one clarifying question for me. After all, in the Division of Community Relations, is the development officer, is that the community relations lead that runs LCRAC and so forth? I'm trying to avoid names. Or is that, does development officer mean like a grant development person?
You're asking who those personnel are?
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
So Melissa Garrett.
Okay.
And then Kevin Weiner.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, no further questions from me. Hearing none, I think we're all wrapped up. Thank you for your presentation. Next up to bat is the City Council presentation. We've got people we know well, council leadership. I don't know if the council, are you intending to share any information, or are we asking the council clerk to do it?
Clerk Brock is going to kick us off, and then I'll jump in as needed.
Okay, thank you. And please state your name and address for the record.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss what we did in 2025 and where we are going in 2026. Just a brief outline here of what the presentation is. I'm going to go pretty quick through the first few slides. You can review them more closely on your own time. These are updated versions of things you've seen before. Here we have a typical year showing our core functions. If you have any questions about these later on, you can ask me. Since community engagement is a goal of City Council year after year, just wanted to highlight what we did this year in this regard. Another series of council community conversations was had 2 years in a row, so that was good. Here are some highlights of some other community outreach. You all look great and active. Love that. And here is just a snapshot of where we were at with public comment. E-comment really took off this year, huge difference from last year. So that's positive. We grew our unique users, and e-comment was used at almost every single general meeting. So I know you've been observing that as we go, but here's the totals. Okay, so diving into 2025, 2020, this was the largest and most budget-intensive project of 2025, was the office renovation. This project is a once-in-a-generation upgrade. You can see in the budget book how much we spent on that under the capital line item. This is not going to be, an every year type thing, spending this amount of money on capital. The last time the office was really touched in this comprehensive of a way was 1990, and this image that you see was actually from a catalog that was kept on file in the office from when that furniture was purchased. So the furniture in this image was our furniture, which was great furniture for 35 years. It was top of the line then, but it was aged. So you can see how it aged here. It was definitely something that was needed. The project started with a request for replacement desks in 2024, but then with President Keppel's vision, we expanded the project to be more comprehensive and meet multiple needs. So I think you guys have all experienced the clean professional conference room, new and expanded desk space for the staff, and updated improved filing for record storage. So I really appreciate the vision there from council leadership and also Public Works and IT. They were very hands-on with this, and they were great to partner with. So this just shows some of the stuff that Public Works and IT were involved with, and the disruption that it caused. It did take up a good deal of time to prepare for this and unpack from this and all that, but it was so worth it. As you all can see, the office looks fantastic and very professional now, and we really enjoy working there. So one of the goals for 2025 was to transition the intern position. I know you've heard me talk about this over the years. I really love the idea of having a 3-person staff to keep the continuity of the work going and the turnaround of the work at a high level. So we were able to hire a permanent staff, and we wanted to wait until we had the office space appropriate for that this year. So as soon as the office was ready, we did a hiring process, and to prepare for that, we created new job descriptions distinguishing a deputy clerk 2 from a deputy clerk 1, and went through a hiring process, and that all went really well. So you can see how we all work together. It's just a visual of our schedule. I really appreciate our deputy clerks, their consistency, their professionalism, their teamwork. I can't say enough great things about our 3-person team that we have right now. If you have any questions, though, about our availability or schedule, you know where to find us. So another thing to say about the office renovation, so it enabled the staffing transition, but it also enabled us the opportunity to really dive into some records management projects. In order to prepare for the physical transformation, we had to go through filing cabinets that had been left dormant for a long time. No reason to go open these filing cabinets for a while. And so for this, we had to do that and dig into things. It's not as simple as just opening the filing cabinet and shredding everything or recycling everything. We had to go through piece by piece of paper and evaluate, what is this? Is it something we're going to shred? Are we going to scan it? Do we need to save the paper copy? Because some of those things we do according to our record schedule. Major credit to Danielle for her initiative on this project. Especially thanks to Danielle's work, we were able to shred 25 boxes of documents. In the budget book, I put some of these other stats, but I ran an updated report. We added new records to the portal, 819 of them, and then there was 289 records that we modified in some way. So maybe found some missing pages and added them on, or made the documents searchable where they weren't before. So this all totaled about 7,000 new pages of content that was made directly accessible to the public. This is, just how glamorous that work looks as it's going. And so just a reminder, those documents go directly into the public portal. They can be seen by you. They can be seen by members of the public. You don't need a password. You don't need a username to go into this. And this was something we launched last year in 2024, so it's still relatively new. So we're still trying to get the word out about how great this process has been. Okay, so moving on to where we're going in 2026. This is what you're seeing in the budget book, and I just highlighted some of the increases, anticipating you might have questions. So for salaries, that's going up a little more than average at City Hall because for the first time in a long time, at-large members are getting a pay bump. We've hired a new permanent staff person, and the rest of us are going to be receiving the 3% increase, and then there's also the 27th pay. So that's why that's a little high, and then fringe benefits goes up as the salaries go up. Moving down the line, so professional, I'll go to professional services last. Communications is up because the $5,200 is in there for a citywide mailer, so that would be postage. We've never done a citywide mailer from the council office, so that's why it shows such a dramatic increase, if that would be the cost of doing that. $2,900 for materials and supplies. That was gone down slightly. Last year, we budgeted a max amount for Lakewood branded apparel for the first time. Since many of you purchased that this year, we're reducing the budget. We still have a couple $100 in there, so reach out if you want some refreshed apparel or new apparel. And then $3,000 for capital. As you can see, that's negative. It's gone down 85%. We're not doing a major capital project, but we do want to add some finishing touches to the office, a screen in the conference room, new fridge and microwave. Okay, and then hopping up to professional services, $38,470. The next slide will show exactly what is involved in that line item. Some of these are estimates, some of them are fixed. Like DocuSign is an estimate, but DocuSign is fixed, but codification is an estimate because it's per page and we just have to estimate that. The only thing new on here is a scanning project that we are initiating. That's for $6,000, and then a little, about $2,000 more this year than last year for leadership initiatives, and all these other line items you have seen before. Just bring your attention to the membership item here, so $1,250. That is going to match up with this breakdown here, or nearly match up with this breakdown, just to show you what those memberships are paying for. So the ones council, so some of them are for professional clerks things, and then the Northeast Ohio City Council Association, the Chamber of Commerce, those institutions have trainings and things like that. So I'll put those on your calendar, and if you think you might be interested in going to a conference, Ohio Municipal League conference too, like we can have money in the budget. We level funded that this year, so there's money in the budget. It's just speak up if you are thinking about that in 2026. And then just some other things we're thinking about in 2026. Going to be doing community conversations again through, and thinking about a citywide mailer, continuing to do strong outreach, definitely open to new ideas and new places to be and ways to reach people. I mentioned that second bullet point, we're working with a professional vendor for the first time to tackle some of the records issues. We're still going to continue to do records management in the office, but it's just like tackling it from multiple angles. So that will be really interesting, and I look forward to updating you on that. Working with block clubs per your guys' specifications on that, and we have charter review recommendations before us, which will require some sort of action, and then the zoning code refresh will be before council. So I really look forward to tackling all these with you in a supportive role, and whatever other things and priorities you bring to the staff next year. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Clerk and the whole team, Danielle and Holly. Council leadership, President Keppel, Vice President Baker, anything to add? More questions?
Sure. Thank you, Clerk Bach, for that presentation and all your work on pulling this together, and to the clerk's office for all that they do to keep us going. We can talk a little bit about, to go back to Councilwoman Strebig's questions about the block clubs. That was a clear council priority in all of our work together on council priorities. So that is likely to be one of the leadership initiatives. We've talked about that some. The mayor and I have talked about that some too, about how the council's office can work to potentially build some training or engagement opportunities for block clubs. So that's something that we'll start looking at this year, as well as professional services, if we need consultants or other advice, as we did this year. And then as well as the communication piece, because we will have both, that was also obviously a priority from council members in our retreats. So both communication of to the public of how they can engage with us. So like we do the e-comment flyers and other information at tabling events that can go out in a mailer, as well as information about, depending what happens with our charter review process, that we'll maybe need to do some public education and information about what is in those, if things end up going on the charter. So that's some of what we were thinking about as we pulled together those line items.
Thank you. Council Vice President Baker, anything? Okay. No? Want to add?
Yeah.
Or as a committee member, you want to ask questions?
No, sounds good. I mean, one of the things President Keppel and I talked a lot about in consultation with the clerk's office was having those funds available for help if council needs it. So PMC is a good example of that. Gave us some independent analysis, which was helpful. Going into next year, it's nice to have that ability to do that should things arise that we need a little bit of outside assistance on.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Councilwoman Striebeck first. And would it be okay to go back to the chart with the funding, unless, or do you want this slide?
I was just going to clarify something that President Keppel just said. The mailer, you're thinking, would educate citizens on things that may be on the ballot?
It could. I think that's something as we work through the charter review process, if we are putting something on and explaining the language, that could be, something that is useful to have on there, and that it is on their ballot as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple questions just to clarify. So the professional services line proposed at $38,470 is intended, if I'm hearing correctly, as a reserve, as opposed to we know on January 1st that a certain portion of that is intended for a certain contract. Is that accurate?
The slide that's up now, the 20,745 is sort of reserves, like how we just talked about, for those purposes, for like how we used for PMC or design of a mailer or professional services working with block clubs and that training, that sort of thing. So I think as we go into the new year, we'll most likely have some more council retreat conversations and priorities and work on that. So I think that's just going to kind of depend on how things go. But the rest of it, as you see, is sort of assigned to certain purposes.
All right. Now I'm following. So this slide in total equals the amount in the chart, and then it's broken out. So kind of the reserve or the discretionary reserve is intended to kind of repeat and maybe broaden a bit the budget capacity, the financial capacity that the city council leadership has used in response to some of the issues we've been working on. I think I understand. Thank you. And then to clarify, so the communications, that's one single citywide mailer, is that correct? Is that what the intent is so far? As opposed, I mean, you could skin that cat a bunch of different ways. You could do smaller repeat mailers, but at the moment, the budget proposal is sized to one large mailer.
Yeah, I believe we had gotten that from finance based on the other newsletters from the mayor's office based on that.
Okay, thank you. And then, so also throughout, I think I see there's various training and conference opportunities and so forth. And I don't know if we have to go through all of that, but for example, I think I personally might have the opportunity to participate in Ohio Municipal League event if the calendar happens to cooperate. I haven't done that before, but that's good to hear that that's an option, and other council members might also be interested. It's only a 2-hour and 20-minute drive to Columbus or thereabouts. So I suspect the mayor, I know, Mayor, you've got the Ohio Mayor's Alliance, and I don't know if you found those to be also fruitful, but that's a potential way in which we can meet colleagues and do our part to convey to the state government, which, as we've talked about, has so say, over marijuana fees, or the lack thereof, or tax proceeds, I should say, or how property taxes work and a bunch of other things. So, okay. Other council members' questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I think that is a wonderful presentation. We appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into that budget presentation. All right, so back at our agenda in Granicus. All right, so we've now, we're on schedule through multiple items. So we're now in the substitutions and finalization portion. What I'd like to do is begin with substitute motions to consider what the finance director shared with us on Friday, December 12th, just last Friday. And there were a number of important substitutes. And I think it's good to consider those for substitute, and then those would become a new baseline for anything else we want to consider this evening. So the motions would be, I've got kind of in order. So the first would be substitute ordinance. Well, let me go through them quickly. There's a substitute for the year-end 2025 appropriations, substitute for the transfer and advances year-end ordinance. We do those quarterly, although this one's bigger, as year-ends tend to be, and related to the previous item. Then we've also got a part of a substitute for the 2026 appropriations and for the capital budgeting contracting authority ordinance, that's 36-2025, and then finally the planning department contracting authority. We do not have a substitute for one of them, which is the plain vanilla contracting authority ordinance. So there's a number of those. I think, to summarize, if I read correctly, Director Mahoney, the first two have to do with what we said, disposing of additional financial resources at the end of budget year 2025, and also reflecting actuals. And then secondly, the second group, the major change is to reflect the council preference for not including in the capital budget a city hall, at this time, a city hall renovation or the inferred. So why don't I, that was a preface, I hope that was helpful, but why don't you give us an overview, Director Mahoney?
Yeah, thanks, Councilman Bullock. And I'd like to say, you said dispose of additional resources, and that's not correct. That's not our intention.
Wrong term, so
yes, absolutely.
What word would you use instead of dispose?
Well, so some of the requested changes are to, as I've pointed out before, this is the first year of the increase in property tax, and years 2 and 3 of that will be stable, but yet our costs increase. So in the first year of a property tax increase, it's fiscally responsible to reserve some of those funds in case years 2 and 3 we need those funds. So that's what we're doing, and some of these changes for the year-end appropriation ordinance. One of the larger expenditures is a temporary advance because of the federal government shutdown. CDBG has not received their funding yet this year. I'm hoping it will come in, but it might not, most likely will not come in until 26. So that would just be a temporary advance to CDBG up to $4 million, and then it would be repaid in 26. The other ones are with the mayor. We have tried to make a concerted effort to not debt out, to try to reduce our debt load. And so for some of that, for example, $475,000 transfer to capital to pay for some smaller items. For example, Madison Park futsal, it's only $112,000. Do we really want to pay for that over 30 years? Probably not. So using this slight extra money from the property tax this year to help fund some capital improvements, roof improvements, HVAC, all smaller items, adding up to $475,000. And those are the main increases. Oh, some transfers to help out fund the street maintenance and repair fund. Again, the funding for that comes from gas tax and motor vehicle license tax. That's been flat for the last bunch of years. And unfortunately, as street maintenance increased and labor to repair the streets has increased. So we're taking the opportunity to help fund that for hopefully to cover the next couple years in shortfalls of revenue versus the expenditures in that fund. I think that's the majority.
Why don't we
of them.
pause there for those two? So first, could I ask whoever's got control of the screen to bring up so that council members can see proposed substitute Exhibit A for, let me rephrase.
For 31-2025.
31-2025, there's a proposed substitute for Exhibits A and B. Let's start with A. So council members and frankly for the the public record, it can be read in. So what it shows is quite a significant amount of additional
We can pull it up on the iPad clerks if that's easier. Is that
2025A. So it's 31-2025 Exhibit A, proposed substitute.
Okay, so that's, let me just check if you can widen that view. So the key point is if you look at the rightmost column, if you could scroll up a little bit so we can read the column headers. So it says increase or reduction comparing November 24 to December 25. What that information is showing is the change from what we projected 12 months ago to what our actuals are today. A blend of actuals and another 2 weeks of projections. But essentially, the finance department knows a lot more information about what we actually incurred in the current budget year of 2025. Okay? And what we're finding is that if you look at the leftmost, I'm just looking at the general fund across the top, 60.99 million was what we anticipated would be the general fund appropriations, that what we would spend for the current year, but that was our projection 12 months ago. What is now proposed is that we're spending or transfer or obligating 70.9 million. So that's the right-hand column shows the difference. That's an increase of $9.9 million. So that shows probably a couple things. First, that the finance department did a good job last year of using conservative estimates, which is always a prudent budget practice. Conservative estimates for our both our income and expenditures, and then they stewarded that well, both Director Mahoney and Assistant Director Eddy. And secondly, probably also what the finance director alluded, that our revenues came in more strongly. Both the property tax, which is 22% of our general fund revenues, and our income tax is what I anticipate. So that means that we have $9.9 million additional, and the proposed use of those. And then there's one other thing I'd like to, if we scroll or look at the bottom, hospitalization, there's a proposed increase of $900,000. Director, if I understand that, that's simply using the strength of the current budget year to allocate it to next year to help us have the hospitalization fund be $900,000 stronger for 2026. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's also a good practice. Essentially, when we're ahead of our budget in the current year, if we can push that forward to next year, that helps in a bunch of different ways. I know some of the director's predecessors did that. I'm glad to see us continue that. So I certainly support all that. If we go to Exhibit B now, if we can transfer that, that shows a little bit of the detail, especially in the general fund. Again, if we look at the right-hand column, a lot of these are somewhat modest in costs, although we see that the information technology, I'm anticipating that's a lot of the software packages we heard about. The proposal is to pay cash from the general fund for some of those and take pressure off the next budget year. And then if you look at the next page, in the general administration other line, at the top of the right on the screen there, 6.955 million, so nearly 7 million. That's the lion's share. That is what the director just, I think, summarized for us verbally, and then she responded to an email question that I had earlier. So if do council members see what's being proposed? I mean, I'm happy to support this proposal. I think it's prudent practices, but we should know what that is, because council could also not do this and instead allocate a portion of those funds to use for something else, okay, which is not what I'm proposing, but it shows that there's financial capacity there. I did hear $475,000 is proposed for paying some of the capital budget. We're going to see that in the next ordinance and the transfer advance ordinance, and the others, a big chunk of that, $3.5 million, I think, is for CDBG. We hope and expect to be reimbursed by the federal government at some point, but in the meantime, to keep those programs on schedule, the city kind of loans herself that money. That's not a new practice. Maybe it's needed all the more currently with the current federal government philosophy. And there were, I'm sorry, Director Mahoney, could you repeat the other items? So there was CDBG, kind of.
Street maintenance and repair, I didn't mention previously, but Office on Aging, those funds always need some help. And Winterhurst, in anticipation of future capital improvements there.
Okay, thank you. So the proposal is kind of get ahead on the next year, the ensuing year's street budget on Winterhurst, and we've heard we are investing a lot in Winterhurst, so that's what we're proposing to do that. And then the Office on Aging, which we always do have about a third of the cost of that department is the city's investment, and so we're proposing to use some of the financial strength of the current year for next year. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, I just want to point that out, and I think that was just the major points I wanted to call to attention of, and the rest is kind of totaled throughout. But if you want to look at those line items, it's very helpful. Rightmost column shows the increase or the change, and also I think we don't need to get into this now, but there's a lot of timing differences on the capital expenditures for wastewater treatment plants and various parts of our IWIP process, and so all of those, some of those are just timing differences. We had the money in 25, the construction is slower, so we're switching it to the coming year. So thank you for the clear proposed and detailed revised appropriation ordinance. If there are no questions or comments, I guess I'd like to entertain a motion that we move to substitute with this version.
Yeah, I'll move to substitute 31-2025 with Exhibits A and B as provided in Granicus.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And, opposed? And the ayes have it. So now let's move to proposed ordinance 32-2025, in which we also have a draft substitute amendment from the Finance Department, and that's on screen now. The red lines don't show, but if I've got a hard copy of the original that I can quickly refer to and try to. Director, would you like to walk us through the changes, and then we can discuss anything needed?
Sure, Councilman. So the main changes are, just as I had mentioned before, street maintenance fund, Office on Aging, the capital projects in Winterhurst, and then the CDBG additional advanced potential because of the funding problem.
Thank you. Okay, so firstly, we have transfer advances quarterly. This is the end of the year. It's a larger one than normal because of what we just discussed in the previous item, what the director just summarized. Essentially, this is part of the execution or carrying out of what we said in the previous appropriations ordinance. And when we're transferring between funds, which is a term of art that not only the Finance Department but the state of Ohio requires us to respect and carefully account for, our custom and probably our legal requirement is to use this ordinance form. So what our original, as introduced on November 17th of this year, proposed a general fund transfer of only $1.3 million, and this is now increased to 3.175 for the reasons we named. Originally, the SCMR fund only had a proposed 250,000, so we're proposing to add 700,000. Office on Aging originally had 650,000, no, 625,000, so that's an additional 300,000. Winterhurst had there was no capital project fund in the original, so the proposal is to add that. And then Winterhurst had, on November 17, only 425,000. Now it's proposed to be an additional 400,000. The rest is the same. No, not the rest. General Fund 101 at the bottom has increased from 1.5 to 4 million. Councilman.
Yeah, and thank you for walking through that, Councilman Bullock. And I guess I believe the intent of this is to take cash and use it and dedicate it for next year so that we lower our borrowing. Is that a general description of?
That's correct. Next year, and in the case of street maintenance, hopefully carrying that into 27.
So it's taking cash and it's putting it at a 529 if you're a family or whatever, like some dedicated account for some purpose that you want to use it for, so you don't have to borrow in the future. Thank you. And why the drastic difference between introduction and now? I mean, there's a 30 days, you know, but just curious.
Conservatively and conservatively a month ago, and now realizing the spending was less than we had anticipated. The departments behaved very nicely this year, and so allowed us to more than increase. Our revenue budget is pretty consistent with what we had budgeted, but it's the spending is drastically less than what we anticipated. And that's, again, the departments being extra fiscally responsible this year.
Is that on ops and capital, or which one?
Mainly operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also tax receipts were higher. I would say that the Office on Aging is not capital, is it? It's just operations for Office on Aging, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and street maintenance is
Any other questions?
operating.
Okay. So I'd like to move that we recommend I'd like to move that we substitute the current version on screen of proposed ordinance 32-2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Now moving on to the fiscal year 2026 appropriations ordinances proposed ordinance 33-2025. We have substitutes for both exhibits A and B. No changes proposed for the language of the ordinance itself, but proposed exhibits A and B we do, and I'm hoping we can once again show that on screen and get the director's summary. Director, could you go ahead? I'm going to keep us moving quickly because I want to not lose time. So, Director, any?
Yeah, the only change in Exhibit A and B is council's request to remove the City Hall renovation of $16.5 million from the capital improvement fund.
Okay. Thank you. Does everyone see that on Exhibit A in red letters? The Capital Improvement Fund originally was proposed at $34.79 million, and it's now down to $16.79 million. The difference is indicated. Now, also, though, the Land Acquisition Fund is proposed to be increased to $1.5 million. That's in the substitute. Pardon?
I think it's kept at that. It just was rolled up.
That's correct. It wasn't increased. It was just moved from the capital improvement fund to the land acquisition fund.
Well, however, this is a proposal to appropriate the full balance, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay. So the balance currently, I'm going to check my notes, but do you have the current balance?
I don't, but I believe it's just a little over 1.5.
Okay, so a little higher than 1.5. And this proposal would allow the administration to spend 1.5 of that amount.
That's correct.
So I guess I'd like to, let's go to could we also show Exhibit B, please.
Perhaps this, thank you, I'd like clarification on this. On the monies appropriated to the land acquisition fund, so we're dedicating that source of money there. In order to spend it, to contract with a third party to acquire new property, does that have to come before council? I guess that's a law department question.
Yes. Property acquisition? Yes. Yes.
Look, waiting for the lawyer to say yes.
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, when we're buying real estate, that has to be presented to council for council's approval.
Thank you.
Okay, I was going to propose considering that in 2 steps, but let's just quickly look at Exhibit B, and if you can scroll through that, you'll see the same information that the it's carried out. It'll be in the capital section on page 9 of 11. Okay, so the same changes carry through. So I'd like to make a motion that we substitute amendments, or excuse me, Exhibits A and B of proposed ordinance 33-2025 with the versions that the finance director provided. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Now, I actually, on the matter, while we're at it, I was going to save this for later, but I would be comfortable with a motion to strike the $1.5 million from the new base from the land acquisition fund to replace with a dash, which would mean that we would not be appropriating the land acquisition fund until such time as we had an explicit discussion between council and administration. This kind of jumps ahead a bit, but my understanding, so first of all, thank you to the administration for working with council on working some of these changes. Secondly, to speak to the substance, I think, I'll speak for me because I can't speak for all of council, but I do see on the full agenda today, there's a thoughtful letter by the council president about a process for the first quarter or so of the coming year about how to proceed on the question of City Hall facilities and finances and upgrades and remodeling. So I personally am interested in support only pursuing that more thoughtfully, not with the continued refinement of that strategy so that we're having the most effective and the least cost option before the city on behalf of the taxpayers. And so I think a little more work needs to happen there. That's not to say that me or other council members aren't aware of the important need, and I appreciate the fact that the administration has been focusing on that need and bringing it to attention for a potential solution. But until we have more common ground on what the proper path is for the facilities, I think it is appropriate for council to amend the 2026 budget so that before any action is taken, we're really crystal clear. So the components of that are capital, contracting authority, appropriations, but also land acquisition fund. So now we did just hear that what the councilman dialogued with the law director about. So there's that. But to me, I know we did this last year. We could also come back as needed with an appropriations update if that's necessary. And finally, what I've seen twice happen for Trinity Lutheran Church and for 2 boarding houses that have been grandfathered in since the 1950s or 60s was that a capital reserve, I mean, Councilman Marks would remember, a funding reserve in the land acquisition fund as a reactive or responsive pool to acquire properties that come unexpectedly open is important and valuable. So I would not want us in any event to not have sufficient funds in the land acquisition fund regardless of what we're using it for that purpose. So there's kind of 2 needs. One is the strategic reserve to respond to surprises, and the other would be this question of whether we're acquiring additional property for the City Hall renovation strategy. So council colleagues on Finance
Yeah.
Committee, would we like to make a motion, or what is your interest?
I mean, as it relates to the land acquisition fund, I think you just articulated why I'd prefer to keep 1.5 million in the land acquisition fund, because it's dedicated funding that will stay there for acquisition of property. And the law director just indicated that the city can't acquire property, so the funding can be there, but the city can't acquire property unless it's brought before council. So to your point, I'd like to have that money there, speaking as one person.
Okay.
I'd like to have that money there so that whether it's potentially a new city hall or some other opportunity that is presented to the city that makes sense for us to acquire the property for a varied reasons.
When you say there, is it in reserve, or it's appropriated?
It's appropriated there, and it's available.
Okay, any other views, Councilman Striebeck or others?
No, that makes sense to me. I'm with Councilman Baker on that.
Okay, any other points, Councilman Evans?
No, I completely agree. I think we should maintain that money for uses. I think you did a great job explaining it.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. All right, so moving on. So no motion, no further motion from me. Any other thoughts, or can we move on to the next item on the agenda where we are considering amendments by substitutes, and that would be the proposed substitute for ordinance 35-2025, which is our capital contracting authority, and that is now on screen.
Did we do a motion for that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too.
Which
For this one.
Yeah.
I believe we did, yeah.
Did we, Clerk?
Substituted 33-20.
We did? We're good?
33 is good? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So we're on to 35-2025, which is on screen, and this simply reflects, once again, the proposed change, which would be, for the moment, to not authorize $16.5 million for purposes of City Hall renovations. So that's $10.5 million in red. As you can see, the original amount was $27 million. Now, these are not accounts, by the way. Those are headings that refer to the capital budget charts that appear in the budget book, which are not, strictly speaking, laws. So I have a potential motion to speak to controls on that. But any questions or thoughts from Finance Committee or other council members on what's before us here?
No, the thoughts I have is, as it's explained in email to council, and this is to your point, custom versus, what's passed, is that the reduction was the 16.5 to buildings and facilities improvements. And the intention there being that I believe the administration original proposal was for that money to go into the Warren Road building during fiscal year 2026. Now, this is reflective of that being removed from this number. So $10.5 million will be spent more broadly on, or we're appropriating $10.5 million if we accept this, to be spent more broadly on all buildings and facilities around the city of Lakewood, every building facility owned by the city of Lakewood. Is that accurate? Whether it's the MUG or...
Yes, that's true, yeah.
So council members, you can look on in your budget book page, starting on page 159, which in the PDF it's 164. But continue.
Yeah, so I guess technically under this passage, the administration could go forward and start an addition on the front of City Hall, or some other major upgrade to City Hall within this appropriation, which I'm not necessarily arguing against. I'm just indicating that the way that we traditionally funded and appropriated is in these large buckets on the capital side. And so we just have to have alignment with the administration on the buckets.
So if you read section 2, it's important. So for a couple of thoughts. First, our current proposal for all of the budget ordinances does something that's alluded to at the end of the budget book in our financial policies and procedures, which is appropriates by fund rather than division or some smaller account line.
Well, I say buckets, you say funds. You're more correct, yeah.
Well, buckets well, these are buckets because these are not even funds. So what it then says essentially is that there's a lot that happens administratively for proposals, contracts, initiatives, final pricing, and the council delegates all of that to the administration. And so some of the very struggles we go through when we're working to develop our own council budget priorities, background and process, that's situation normal for the administration. That's what we've written in the law and delegated. And if you read section 2 on screen, it says the mayor, et cetera, and other members of the administration is hereby authorized and directed to enter into contract as set forth in amounts not to exceed the specified amounts without further action from council, and to enter into contracts in excess only upon the consent of council. So right there in section 2, you got to scroll. Whoever's got the screen, can you scroll down to the next page? It says explicitly a little bit more that go back up, please. There we go. Without further action from council. Okay, so that means that the $10.5 million can be used for anything that the administration deems within the budget book chart in the section headed building and public facility improvements, which goes for 2.5 pages. So I personally think it's better to belt and suspenders this and make clear what the intention is. I don't get the sense that the administration is trying to not carry out the intention of council, but that's not what the ordinance says. So if we are interested in being clear, there's a motion that I've got prepared to, I think Councilman Baker at one point asked or expressed interest in trying to take these buckets, not these semi-funds, these informal funds on screen, and break them out by division, which we're not proposing tonight. But you could make a motion, which is on the middle of page 2 in a chart that I shared. It would say move to amend 35-2025 section 2 by inserting at the end of the section after amount period the following. Notwithstanding any other language in the section, the mayor, the director of law, the director of finance, the director of public works, the procurement officer, and their designees are prohibited from entering into contracts for the acquisition of new city hall buildings, facilities, or other spaces, or for the renovation of existing city hall facilities. So that motion would make it clear that the spirit of what was proposed is also legally required to be carried out. In other words, we're not doing this until we talk again.
That motion's a little overly restrictive in the sense also that if some repair to City Hall is necessary, I mean, this is an old building, repairs come up. And that's my only hesitation with that is I think there may, let's say there's a roof leak or something, right? You're saying we can't, I think a broad reading of of that proposed motion that hasn't been made would I think be overly restrictive on the administration.
Well, the motion is to enter into contracts for the acquisition.
Will you say or for the renovation of existing city hall facilities?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mayor, please.
Just to clarify, if you see on page 159 of the budget book, it does have a lot of the detail behind all of these buckets, if you will. So to Councilman Baker's point, that would be overly restrictive in that if you look at page 159, we're using $100,000 for roof improvements, boiler rooms, sign shop, air handlers, so roofs, windows, walls, $2.5 million for Winterhurst. So you see the detail behind those dollars that is within the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't think the language proposed would prohibit repairs at all. It says acquisition of various things or the renovation of existing city hall facility. Renovation is different than repair, but if that was needed to be proposed, we can propose a different motion. But here's the challenge for City Council, that at the bottom of page 160 in the budget book, it says City Hall modernization, design and construction, 18 million. And then it lists purchase of Warren Road from the land acquisition fund for 1.5 million. This is the administrative document that the administration uses, like a punch list, to work through. And it has the authority under Section 2 to do what it wants without further action by council. City council doesn't have a legal way to amend that line.
Excuse me, Councilman.
So-
As we discussed, we can't purchase a building without coming back to council. So even though it's in the plan, we would have to have council's approval to purchase the building.
So there is that. But I'm making a broader point too, which is that right now, what's in the administration-authored capital charts, City Council doesn't have a method by which we can amend that unless we were to do some new piece of legislation, which we don't have tonight, and amend the charts and say this shall be considered to be the charts in the budget book, which is something that we've never done before. And Director Mahoney, you shared with me your methodology, and it's listed in the budget book too. The methodology for developing this capital plan, which is a great plan, includes the administration and not council. So if council is to be in charge of the spending of the city, we don't have a direct way to affect this chart. So that's the spirit of the motion. I'm not insisting on it, but I do think it's worth calling our attention to what the law actually says. Mr. Baker, then Council President Keppel.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I think your motion, or you didn't make the motion. You talked about a motion. So the motion you talked about would perhaps be a little more amenable to me if we said or for the expansion of the existing city hall. Like because there's a lot of ways to do this. And Tom, you and I, when we're alone and not deliberating in a public meeting with other council members, have talked about more generally how the city of Lakewood does contracting. And some of the other public entities I know, it's like anything over $500,000, anything over $1 million comes back to council, even if it's originally appropriated, right? So that's another route, right? You could say you can't, and from the Building Facilities Improvement Fund, they can't spend more than $1 million without coming to council. We could do things like that as well. I think that this, if it was or the expansion of the existing city hall, but I think that I would want to be clear in that intent that like we have an interest in finding a solution. We just haven't been presented the solution yet. And so that's the way
I personally agree, and I'd be happy to entertain a motion that struck the word renovation for expansion. But again, so I'm going to keep moving quickly. Council President Keppel.
Thank you. I guess I appreciate the intent behind that. I had worked with the administration on the substitutes that we have and on the proposal, the schedule and timeline that you saw probably already on the full docket. So I guess my question would be, and I don't know if this is a Director Mahoney or Director Varco, but because page 160, the budget book says that the 18 million is made up of the 16.5 in 2026 bands and the 1.5 from land acquisition. And as we discussed, the land acquisition couldn't be used without coming back to council for the purchase of the building. So the 16.5 won't exist unless council approves the 2026 bands. So because of the appropriations ordinance, I'm not sure. I guess my question is, because that money is not currently appropriated and does not exist without further action of council, is there a mechanism by which, if the administration, not saying that they do, but if they did want to say, oh, we're going to spend the 10.5 all on renovating City Hall without coming back to City Council, if I'm reading this because it's not appropriated and it wouldn't be appropriated unless we pass the bans. Is that making sense what I'm saying?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
so is it the administration's
The other thing
intent?
I'd like to remind council is that we have a board of control. So that council had created, I don't know, some years back, that everything that follows under the purchasing guidelines, So anything over $50,000, a contract has to be approved by the Board of Control, which is a public meeting. So
Okay, thank you. Although, again, council's not a part of that. And sometimes we have the ability to monitor the meetings, but we're not a part of the voting and so forth, or the agenda development or the, but I think I'm beating a dead horse. So it's just to get it clear, the intention of the administration with the new lowered amount listed on screen here for the building and facilities improvement is to not pursue the City Hall renovation until we further confer and agree on the approach. Is that accurate?
well, you took it out of the appropriation, so we don't have that authority. And again, like Council President Keppel mentioned, you have not approved the borrowing, so we don't have the funding for it. So
Okay, but I
if
asked
you're
a
worried
different
about
question.
us
Is it the
going forward
intention?
without council's approval, it's impossible.
I guess I'm asking, the intention is also not the
Well,
administration's
even if
intention.
it was our intention, we don't have the authority to do so. So,
Well, that's different, because I can come up, for example, Council President, with a hypothetical. So it says on City Hall Service Garage, 2.878 million. Under the current proposal unamended, that 2.8 million could be not used for the service garage and could be used to acquire or begin work. It could be used to begin work on a building for less than 16.5, but that's still meaningful expenditure of funds. I think I'm hearing that I'm beating the dead horse, so I'm letting it drop, but I appreciate the,
Yeah, I think my, if
there are scenarios.
yeah, I know, I understand that if it's less than that amount, that it could happen, but I guess that was my question, because the language of this ordinance says, as in the budget book, and in the budget book it says the funds shall come from bands, so if there aren't band funds, then even if the money is appropriated in a different fund, it couldn't be used for that. Like, they couldn't be like, oh, we're putting a $2 million expansion on the police station without coming back to you and not using it for the pole barn, because that money is not appropriated
that's
and
correct.
doesn't exist.
Nor would we.
Well, let me ask one final question. It's a good point. Is this chart set in stone as of November 17, when it's first created, or December 31, when the fiscal year ends, or January 1, or is it a living document that the administration can and does amend?
We
Because
do
it's an
not.
administrative
We
guidance.
do not
document.
vary from this document.
Okay.
We would
So-
have some department heads really mad. Like if I took the $2.5 million Winterhurst and used it on City Hall.
Got it.
well, we
When
wouldn't
is
do
it
that.
final, is my question.
It's final when council approves the appropriation ordinance.
Okay, all right, thank you. So that's a good point. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, the question I have in this discussion, you know, I do get some concern that technically, like, we could go out for a $200,000 design contract on the Warren Road building under this appropriation. Or a $300,000 design contract to design the front of City Hall. And so I think technically we could do that under this appropriation. Now, I'm hearing that the administration's saying they're not going to do that without consulting with council or coming up with a more global strategy collectively, right? Okay. So I'm comfortable with that collegiality and faith in our colleagues.
Great. All right, I'd like to move to substitute the version of proposed ordinance 35-2025 that's on screen for us for the original.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. And then finally, kind of finally, ordinance 35-2025. 36-2025, thank you. Proposed ordinance 36-2025, which would provide for contracting authority for the planning and development department. And that has now added a bunch of detail, and also the amount has been lowered from $6.75 million in the original to the amount you see now, which the director let me know reflects the actuals, is a more accurate amount. I think the discrepancy was a mistaken allocation for COVID funds, COVID relief funds that is now does not apply. So I don't have any additional questions here, but I do appreciate the specificity that's included here. Any Councilwoman Keppel.
Thank you. I just want to thank the administration and particularly Director Mahoney and Mr. Wyman in the planning department. Historically, no one's really quite sure why this ordinance has been done this way, but we had requested it to be done more like 34-2025 that has the itemized amounts. It's just clearer for everyone, and it makes more sense to be in programs rather than specific vendors. So I appreciate being willing to make that change and getting it done in a way that I think is much clearer for council. So thank you.
Can we scroll to the next page so the screen can show? Thank you. Okay, so there are the amounts. I'd like to move that we recommend, that we substitute the version before us, the substitute version for 36-2025 with the version before us.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the ayes have it. So I'd like to also now consider, in the little bit of time that we have left, potential city council budget priorities amendments. And I shared that before the meeting. It's in this chart. I think the administration has it too. Before getting into the specifics, and I'm going to have to talk like a New York City auctioneer to keep on schedule, a couple points about the spirit of what is here. First of all, this is an attempt to provide council options. And I recognize the Finance Committee is 3 of us, but we're all 7 here. I kind of hope that we can, Council Finance Committee, we can act in the spirit of the committee of the whole, even though technically the people with votes are the 3 of us. Secondly, none of these are new. These have been worked on for, I think, 3 actually council retreats dating back more than 12 months ago. What I've attempted to do, and I have done, in fact, is organize and consolidate what appears in the budget book from pages 23 and 24 and rank them or ordered them by number of council members and then also points of priority assigned by the spoons in the bags at the time and budget priority. And then it's more or less following in the sequence you see in the budget book. There are 16 proposals. What I have done is an attempt not to act as the chair here, but the kind of the secretary of the meeting minutes and reflect what council members have indicated their interest in proposing. What I could figure out was 5 proposals had enough detail to propose potential motions. So not everything. So there's 16 potential options. Before you, you see potentially 5 amendments. Council, now I dialogued with the finance director, and she very collegially said 2 things. First, let's start working together earlier in the year. I appreciate that. I don't know why our custom hasn't been more clear, but I appreciate the finance director saying let's do this starting in June or thereabouts so that the work that the finance department leads isn't redundant or somehow missing something. Secondly, the amounts proposed here, if any of these motions were to be agreed to, are in keeping with all contracting authority and appropriations, amounts not to exceed. In other words, it doesn't attempt to supplant or change the administration's traditional role, which is to say you shall spend something. What this would do would make available some funds up to the amounts listed for the purposes listed. But it could be that costs come in lower or timing differences are such that it gets pushed off or something else happens and it doesn't make sense to expend the money. So the amounts that could be, if you total up the proposals and no changes to the proposed amounts are made and all were to pass, the amounts are potentially as much as $570,000 additional. I want to say that. Number 2, a number of these items, for example, the racial equity plan, certainly a worthy and deserving initiative, doesn't have anything proposed here. The administration has noted that some funds were spent in fiscal year 24. We're at the end of 25, and here we have nothing proposed for 26. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't keep working on that, and if we come with a specific concept and a proposed amount, that we can then work after January 1 to continue proposing those amounts. Director Mahoney said, you know, other cities do mid-year appropriations updates. It entails a certain amount of work. We could potentially do them semi-annually or quarterly. That's a live discussion. But the fact that there's no proposal on one of these items doesn't mean that it has to be the end of the road or it's not important to council or the administration. It just means potentially there's more work, okay? And that was my level best attempt to reflect what I saw. For those that are proposed, on the matter of how we maintain a structurally balanced budget in the general fund, which is a critically important point, there is ample amounts. And I sent some of this around in an email note today. There's $277,500 proposed on page 34 of the budget book for capital. The intent by the administration is to relieve some of the pressure on bonds and notes and reduce our debt. We just, however, reduced the pressure on bonds and notes and debt by $16.5 million. So $277,500 could easily be shifted to the bonds and notes, and the cash envisioned in the original proposal from the general fund to further subsidize on top of the $475,000 that we just approved in the transfer advances ordinance could be freed up to be used. That's one potential source. Another would be to allocate from the economic development account line up to $350,000. Actually, Maureen and council staff, do you have that projected fund balance slide that includes the projected end of 2026 reserve? That would show that the economic development fund, if you scroll down, this is on page 9 of the budget book, except for the last row, 2026 budgeted, which I think is the important point here, because that shows if we pass the budget, what we'll end up in 12 months with in these various accounts. So general fund revenues, and I'd like to make a point later in the council meeting about how the days of reserve have dropped 3 days, even though the dollar amounts have gone up in the general fund year-end unencumbered balance. It shows our costs are going up. But if you look at the middle column, Economic Development Fund, the proposal is currently to increase to $1.5 million, and the little A there says it's including $150,000 Economic Development Fund loan from the county. So if we ended the year in 2026 with $1.15 million, we'd have $1 million in cash from the city, $150,000 from the county still available. That leaves $350,000. You add up $350,000 and $277,500, you've got $627,500, which is more than the highest possible amount proposed in these motions. So the pay-fors are there. In fact, you'd have a surplus beyond that. If we wanted to go further than that, you'd find additional funds in the Land Acquisition Fund, which traditionally has had $1 million or less. We just saw we had 1.5. That's probably more than we need. But it doesn't hurt to have the reserve, but you could find cash there. You could also change, as I referred to, the allocation of some of the $9.9 million in end-of-year 2025 appropriations. I'm not proposing that we do that, but we had. I do want to point this out. We projected in our 2025 budget book 12 months ago that our general fund structural balance was going to be only $23,959, so just shy of $24,000. 12 months ago, we thought at the end of the year we'd only have $24,000. We ended up with $9.9 million. So that's, again, credit to the financial stewardship and the conservative estimates of the finance department. But when we say in the current fiscal year that we only project a $17,000 surplus, that's on the same order of magnitude of 12 months ago. And I think that we can reasonably find or commit up to $570,000. So I wanted to say that at the beginning. We do have reserves. Council does have discretion. And if you want to make these motions, maybe we're out of time in the committee, but we could discuss it a little bit, potentially consider motions on the floor. Mr. Baker.
First of all, I want to, on behalf of everyone, Tom, this is where you're at your best. I love you during budget season because I think you've forgotten more about the city budget than most of us know. So I appreciate your effort putting this together because I think it's very well done. And I will say that I wish I had more than a couple hours to look at it to kind of put motions on the floor. But the one thing I do think is that when four of us decide to do something, or two of us, three of us bring something forward as a resolution or an ordinance, it can be passed. And so I do think that there are opportunities, as Director Mahoney said, like throughout the year, where we have quarterly advances in reserves, and that's where we can kind of see where the money's going. Because some of the stuff on here, the block clubs, and then the case stuff, right, like appropriating money to them for more traffic calming, for more ability for them to do some quick implementation projects, or at least propose them. I see those as things that I'm certainly interested in supporting, and I think that we do have the ability to fund them. I just don't know if tonight is the night to do it. I think maybe February, March, something like that.
So I'll reply. Tonight's the night, because there's a lot of work that goes into creating the ordinances. We've got the ordinances in front of us. We're reflecting more than 12 months of council deliberation. We've got language. We should consider this now. If we pass the language, it doesn't mandate on January 1st that even a nickel gets spent, or even by December 31. It would simply make available for the priorities that we've identified after a lot of work with the residents, appropriations and contracting authority. I see we're short on time. We'll probably need a bathroom break. Yes.
Thank you.
But we could also consider some of these on the floor. I mean, that's my opinion. Go ahead,
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm too very impressed with all of this work that you've done. And I would also like to look at this. And I do think that there's a spirit between City Council working with the administration to do some of this stuff without having to put it into an ordinance here. And as Councilman Baker was just indicating, as we start to go through the year, I think that we absolutely keep these as our priorities and start to knock these things out. Thank you.
How do we do that, Councilwoman? Because what our current system is to ask and wait for the administration. They're busy with a lot of other things. So I think it's our job to show that it is a priority, and they start on January 1 with resources. Okay? And some of these are our initiatives. Like, I'm not sure that the administration, and it's not their job to necessarily agree with everything we propose. Like, we're the ones that had the vision for, it was your vision originally, that block clubs and neighbor-to-neighbor networks would be a part of our emergency response, and really could be a part of our snow response, because heavens knows that we need additional snow removal. So there are supports available to us, and if we decline to take advantage of the opportunity for us tonight, that just means that we're going to have to draft the legislation, wait for 3 readings, come back to the same moment that we are now. And for anybody who would like to make, I mean, these are draft motions that don't have to be made, so feel free to make adjustments. But that's my try. So I'm sorry, I'm talking fast and quick and forcefully because we're out of time.
I understand. I do have one question through you. Mayor Georgia, are you aware that these are our priorities, and would you agree to work with us on these?
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. You know, we received this document at about 4:15 this afternoon, so it's going to take a little bit of time to absorb it, but a lot of these council priorities we've discussed before in the past. I think to your point, it would be good to have conversations and see about how we put these proposals to work. You know, for instance, the block clubs. In this document, it's mentioned $100,000 to go towards block clubs. I think we need to have conversations to understand what exactly we'd be doing with block clubs and how that money would support enhanced block clubs. So to your point again, I believe that there's certainly conversations to be had, and I think we've had a history of working together on a variety of projects, and we should continue those dialogues throughout the year.
Okay, we got to make some motions to report legislation out of the committee. So I'd like to move that we, let's do an en bloc motion. I think we can do that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The committee has not acted on substitute ordinance 34, 2025.
Thank you for the reminder. So now there was no proposed substitute for that one.
Correct.
Okay, so that stands as it was proposed. So what I'd like to do is propose that the Finance Committee report favorably out as amended and as substituted and amended ordinances 31-2025, 32-2025, 33-2025, 34-2025, 35-2025, 36-2025, and 29-2025. That's the motion.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Discussion? Is that a clear motion? Okay, so we've substituted, and now we're reporting out favorably as substituted. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and the ayes have it. We are 1 minute early. Without objection, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. We'll just take a couple minutes to reset, and we'll stop for council.
Yeah, it's up to you. If you want to stay for the fun, you can. I know, she looks so smart, didn't she? Why? No, you look good. Anybody that wears glasses is smart.
You want your cheaters something to fit in on this?
Oh, you don't have glasses or contacts?
No.
Oh.
Mine is close up. I can see far away.
Right, yeah. I was looking at something, I can't see that. I'm like,
And mine is, I take mine off to look at the computer now. Like, I could never see either, and now since I'm older, I... Okay, thanks, Jess. Couldn't do it without you. So, and just to let you know, we made a conditional offer. You might say he looks a little old for the job. Let's say he's seasoned. I think he's probably my age or a little younger. Yeah, and he's
seasoned people need jobs too, Renee.
You know, he got I know, I'm like, I shouldn't be. I'm like, I just wish he was 10 years younger. He was controlled finance director for Easter seals, and during COVID, his job got eliminated. And then he worked with Yeah, he does. But he's like, I think his wife is a big breadwinner.
He said she travels a lot.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I already did so much research. Like, I think he's, it's gonna like,
Yeah, but very professional. Yeah. It'll definitely level up the position.
I mean,
And he's out of work right now, so
yeah,
he could start
tomorrow.
Okay.
Send me contracts, so I can start writing down, like making spreadsheets.
Yeah, yeah.
Take a look at this.
Yeah.
Take a look at oh, good. Okay, good.
So, and he said, what did he say about, like, everyone has a part of, what did he say? How did he say that?
Like stakes to stake. So, like, yeah, he had a really nice, like,
It didn't seem fake.
no, it didn't seem fake. And
Yeah.
he had, like, a couple jokes.
But he also looks like the teacher from Clueless and Princess Bride. I'm like, I go and I go, Jess, he looks like somebody famous. And she goes, yeah, this guy. And I brought him up. I go, yes, that's him.
All right, we will call the full meeting of council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now it's our custom to pause for a moment of silence. Tonight, as we enter that, it's with heavy hearts that we recognize the sudden passing this week of Nancy Fian. Having previously served in the mayor's office, Nancy started working at Cove Community Center shortly after its opening, and she quickly became the heart and soul of the place, a warm, welcoming presence that made everyone entering feel part of the community. As Human Services Director Barry said when I spoke with him, she knew everyone who came through the door immediately. Nancy was also a talented photographer, participating in the Lakewood Art Festival, and she contributed her skills to document and promote Cove events. I expect that we will formally recognize Nancy's contributions at a future meeting, and I know the mayor also wishes to acknowledge her, so I'll just close by saying Nancy was a bright light who truly cared about the lives of her colleagues and neighbors and served her community with joy. She will be missed terribly. Mayor George.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, it was with very sad news that we had heard that she had passed over the weekend, and I'd like to take a moment and share part of an email I sent citywide regarding Nancy. Nancy began her tenure with the city here in my office and did a fantastic job. And she ultimately found her home in Human Services at Cove Community Center. Nancy quickly became the face of Cove. She built deep and meaningful relationships with the residents she served. Her compassion, humor, and presence made a lasting impact on countless lives. She was a pillar of the Lakewood community and a familiar and deeply trusted figure. She dedicated her time and talents to this community, which she served faithfully, and her loss will be felt immensely across the city of Lakewood. You know, words can't express how sad we were. And I was thinking today about Nancy and how much she loved photography. I still had this photo and letter she had sent me with a beautiful photograph that she took and a heartfelt note about how much she truly enjoyed working for the city of Lakewood. And that's something I will personally cherish. And I think everybody has a similar personal memory and story about Nancy, and she will be deeply, deeply missed.
Thank you. I'll take a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Baker,
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
President Keppel.
Here.
Councilmember Marks. Councilmember Hamilton Steiner. Here. Councilmember Strebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held December 1st.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 1, report from Committee of the Whole. Meeting held December 5th, 2025.
I'm going to... Oh, that was... yeah. It's like, that was me. So Committee of the Whole met December 5th to discuss Resolution 2025-73 regarding the collective bargaining unit agreements. We had good discussion with the administration about their hard work on those agreements, which we very much appreciated, and it was referred favorably out of committee for adoption this evening. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
The only thing I'll note is we did make a slight amendment to it about the next round of
That's correct.
of bargaining where the administration will meet with council to kind of go over high-level strategy in advance.
That's correct. Thank you for that reminder. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 2, substitute resolution 2025-73, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor of the city of Lakewood to enter into agreements with the 8 unions representing more than 450 city employees for a 3-year period commencing January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2028, and ratifying those agreements.
And this is the version that includes that, that change, as Vice President Baker mentioned. So I will first move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Again, thank you to Director Dillinger and Director Mahoney and Assistant Director Swallow in particular, as well as all the administrative staff that contributed to getting this done, and to the unions for having a collegial relationship and working together. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to adopt, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 3, report from Finance Committee held December 8th and December 15th, 2025.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee met and did a very robust and thorough job of hearing from the various departments, developing thoughtful questions, and all council members participated too, which is wonderful and we appreciate. To the directors about accomplishments, trends, plans for next year, and also the cost for operations and capital as proposed. So it was very thoughtful and successful series of budget hearings, including tonight we talked at length about budget reserves. I would like to note, I guess I'll save it for the next item rather than put it in a report, that there are cost implications of the amount of spending in the budget. We've received strong tax revenues, but we've also we're facing a lot of costs thanks to capital, and then anticipated or now approved staffing cost increases. So I have an observation to share about that, but I'll save that for following motion. Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 4, Ordinance 31, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025.
First, move to amend by replacing with the version recommended out of Finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Madam President.
Councilman Bullock.
I've got, I guess this is as good a time as any. I just want to give some big picture comments on the budget process and the budget as proposed. So this proposal before us is year-end 2025 appropriations, and it reflects much stronger tax receipts and also disciplined cost controls by the administration, which we appreciate. And it then proposes to transfer $9.9 million out of the general fund to next year's needs for various places, mostly capital, but also some office on aging. So it's a prudent budget. On the budget for next year, I'd like to note that there's a chart in the budget that projects that there's a decline in the number of days that our year-end general fund balance will cover. So by our financial policies and procedures, we attempt to reserve up to 60 days of unencumbered general fund balance. It's a good practice. It gives us a cushion if we don't get paid, for example, if we get a delayed payment from the federal government for community development block grants, and it's good for our balance sheet and our credit rating. But let me just go through some figures. In 2019, we had $7.9 million. That was good for, that covered 64.9 days of operations, or $122,000 a day. In 2020, we increased that to 9.2 million, and that covered 75 days at about $121,000 a day. In 2026, we're increasing the dollar amount to 10.8 million, but it only covers 61 days. And in fact, a year-over-year 3-day drop. So we project that in 12 months, we're going to have more money in reserve, but that larger amount is going to cover 3 fewer days of operations. And so the calculation is that now for 2026, we cost $175,683.79 per day. So that's an increase from the other numbers I said, which was around 122 or 121,000. That's an increase of 44% since 2020. And by comparison, U.S. inflation is 26, 27%. Midwest inflation is 13.25. So our daily cost of operating the city is going up more steeply than inflation. Personnel costs in total, as are included in the ordinance before us that we're talking about right now, I totaled them at $64 million. That may be an undercount if you measure across all funds. So that's a significant one. The corollaries or the implications of this is that our staff costs will grow a compounded 3% in 2027 and 4% in 2028 by the agreements that we just approved. Our financial strategy, I'm inferring, is that we are counting on tax receipts to grow, and they have been, and that's encouraging, but is that sustainable? Is it sustainable for our taxpayers, and is it always going to be that the economy is strong or our income taxes are strong? With staff costs high and locked in, the option for the city to have cost control is to reduce overtime, and if needed, then our only other choice is reduce headcount, which is the most painful. I'm not advocating for that at all, but what I'm pointing out is that as our costs have gone up and 75% of our budget, our general fund, is personnel, we're noticing, okay? And I do think that's of concern. Our headcount has gone up by about 10 people or so, but the costs are going up, so that's something to watch for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's important to note, too, in those contract agreements in our discussion, committee of the whole, too, reducing overtime was one of the priorities. So, but it is worth noting, you know, and as you've pointed out, Councilman Bullock, before, the city has experienced hardship in the past and had to lay off staff, and that's not something we ever want to do again. So I'm sure we'll all continue to keep an eye on that. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion to amend by replacing with the version recommended out of Finance Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. Next, I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, Ordinance 32, 2025. An ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the transfer in advance of certain funds.
Move to amend by replacing the version out of Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And I will then move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, substitute Ordinance 33, 2025. An ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026.
Move to amend by replacing the version recommended out of Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Yes, Councilman.
Excuse me. Before moving further, I'd like to ask colleagues if they'd be interested in making one or more motions to amend this Exhibit A and B and potentially contracting authority ordinance. If the answer is no, then I think we move straight to recommending adoption. If there's interest by council members on the floor of making one or more motions, because I'd like to know that now, so that essentially what would the concept would be is that council could move to add appropriations in this ordinance and then contracting authority in a corresponding different ordinance. So you'd have to keep that open. And I think there's potentially interest in a composting proposal, and a public art proposal, and an affordable housing strategy proposal to allocate more resources to Lakewood Alive for safe, accessible, and affordable housing to keep older adults safely in their homes. I would be happy to make a series of motions on that. I don't want to belabor the point, so I guess I'd ask the chair or the president, the council president, and other colleagues, their interest level. If there's a majority of council, I also appreciate the point that it's kind of hard to do this on the floor, so there are two views on this. But it's not impossible to do it on the floor, and it's council's prerogative. So that's my question.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, as we've worked these past couple months through the budget process, and we've had a couple different substituted versions of these ordinances, and some of them at council's request for the administration to change and administration updating. We see it can get a little confusing. We've had multiple red line versions. We've gone through all those different changes. We've talked about how changing one component, such as the appropriations, affects the contracting authority and affects the others. So, we've spent several months working to get to this point. I'm not sure that it's in the best interest of good governance for us to, in the 11th hour, make a bunch of motions to change that without having extensive conversations with the finance department about how such changes would affect other elements. I would like more time to look over the proposals that you've had, and I also think that Director Mahoney and I had some really good discussions about, as we've seen these appropriations, the finance department does a very good job of conservatively predicting, how much we'll actually spend in a year. But as we go through in the first few months, we can see where we are as well, and we can always amend the appropriations, which is not a thing we've historically done, but I think it is something that the administration was open to doing collaboratively in alignment with some of these proposals. And I think that would give us all time to make sure that what we're doing is fiscally responsible and sustainable. So that's my take.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just first thank Councilmember Bullock, as Chair of the Finance Committee, for all the hard work he did over the last week or so bringing these things together. This is a tough one. I realize it is late in the process, but I think, all the things in front of us are common sense expenditures. It's not asking for the moon. It's a lot of things constituents are asking for. So I'll express frustration in the process itself that it took so long to get this 11th hour, and I'm not blaming my colleagues, Councilman Bullock, for that one. And I'm happy to hear that Finance Director Mahoney is interested in starting these conversations sooner in June, so that we don't get to the point where we're not having time to debate some really important and potentially life-changing expenditures for folks. So I just wanted to, I'm not going to throw a wrench in this thing, but wanted to express that I'm supportive of everything before us. If there were other interests to debate those now, which there's probably not, I would be open to that, but I'm not going to hold up the proceedings for that matter. So thank you.
Madam President?
Councilman Bullock.
Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to amend 33-2025 Exhibit A to add $50,000 to the amount appropriated for the general fund, and to increase the dollar figure listed after totals by the same amount. And for the purposes of a composting initiative under the Climate Action Plan, the source would be the Economic Development account line. That latter portion would be specified in a later motion, but I'd at least like to move that first portion to add $50,000 to the amount in Exhibit A. That's my motion, Madam Chair.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Motion is move to amend 33-2025 Exhibit A to add $50,000 to the amount appropriated for the general fund, and to increase the dollar figure listed after totals by the same amount. And go to the next page, should show Exhibit A. So the motion is the top figure on the top right. Add $50,000 to that amount.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair,
Discussion, Mayor George.
Just a couple clarifying questions. So the motion is to add $50,000 to the budget out of the Economic Development Fund for a citywide composting program, correct? And that number is based on what analysis?
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The one of my council colleagues is working with the planning department and has estimates from other cities. This is a partial and lesser amount compared to what Shaker Heights has. It would provide funds to have a one-year pilot in pursuit of what's called for the climate action plan for the solid waste. And it would be an amount up to, not to exceed. So in other words, if costs came in less, then of course the cost would be less, the expenditures would be less. There's also need to amend other parts to make this actionable. So if the motion were to pass, there would be another motion to amend Exhibit B to list the appropriate amount, and then the contracting authority would go with that. So 3 different spots.
Okay. What is the amount Shaker Heights uses today? What's that program?
More than 70,000 for a more expansive version.
Okay. And all right, I was just under the impression that council is working with planning to kind of develop a program, do some survey work to see what the city and residents felt towards adding this program. So, okay.
And Madam President, I think that to respond to the mayor's point is a good one. That doesn't change, because if that same initiative will still need all of those things, that dialogue with council, between council and administration and potentially residents. It's just that we'd start the year with financial capacity for that purpose, as opposed to not being sure whether we have financial capacity.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. So this is, I guess my question would be, well, a couple questions. And these are the kinds of things, too, where, we're all shuffling through 20 different pieces of paper up here to look at these funds and where it's coming out of. And I just, we can always adjust the appropriations later. I'm a little concerned about doing it right now without having conversations with Director Mahoney about where is this money coming, because we do have funds allocated. I believe this was marked as, we do have funds allocated, am I correct, for this? It's just you're asking to increase it?
I think,
Go ahead.
if I'm understanding it correctly, it's more grant funds. So this would actually, so this would essentially allocate actual dollars. And if we were successful in getting grant dollars, that would be able to supplement it.
I see. Okay, and then it's proposed to come out of the economic development account line. I guess I would have questions too about how that would affect what is already anticipated to be used for the economic development line.
Yeah, thanks, Council Chair Couple. This, unfortunately, this is just very frustrating. 50,000 out of a $200-some million budget. It doesn't seem material, but just for all the work that the departments have gotten to up to this point, and to throw $50,000 in at the last minute, if we were to obtain grants and we would come back to council then and appropriate the funds and accept the grant. So we could do that at a future date. I don't, for any project that a department comes to me to say, I want to do this project or that, there is very detailed analysis, and that's maybe my frustration with any of these council priorities, like where did the numbers come from? Is it just a guess, or, it's very thoughtful. And so I would ask council to consider, again, after the planning study, coming back and whatever needs to be appropriated, we can determine at that time. Thank you.
So, Council President?
Councilman Bullock.
So the, as far as the source, that would be a future motion. So there'd be a series of motions if council was interested in supporting this concept. You move to amend this current motion. There'd be a parallel one for Exhibit B. Suppose we could group those together. And then in contracting authority for, on future ordinance 36-2023 for the planning department, you'd have to also add this capacity. As far as the pay for, that would be a separate amendment to this ordinance 33-2023. As we reviewed in the Finance Committee, so the economic development account line is not an account, it's not a fund, it's a internal tracking metric that we use, similar to in our council office budget when we have other or these other lines. That's not an official account, but it is a important mechanism we use internally to track these things. What the budget book proposes is a $1.5 million projected year-end 2026 year-end balance of the Economic Development Fund. So this would propose to use a portion of that. The current the current projected, December 31 of this year is 1.1 million, okay? So the projection is 1.5 million for at the end of next year. If we basically obligated up to, but not to exceed 50,000, you'd still be ahead in the Economic Development Fund of where you are today or on December 31, if that makes sense. So these are, the other thing is it's all general funds, so this is cleaner and easier to dispose of as opposed to, say, trying to propose changes to the debt financing or debt obligations, which is not the proposal. It's purely discretionary funds within the general fund and within council's control. And to the director, I would say these are council's initiatives, so it's council's discretion about what is thoughtful and worthwhile. And I think that's the whole point, is the conversation is that city council has work it's doing and has done, and conversations with the public. I know 2 members of the public are here, and they've been consistently coming about this issue. And so there's a big difference on January 1 between saying we know we have funds to implement a program, let's go be successful, versus we're not sure, and we might pursue, and we might get, or we might be rejected for grant funds. Because in the first situation, you can actually go out and do things with confidence and speed. In the second, you're just hoping.
Well, I don't even know what we're spending these funds on, Councilman. What, 50,000 to what? To a vendor? To, it's, and I, from my understanding, planning is working on a study. And so I don't understand why. We probably have the funding within the budget currently if a grant came up and we needed to forward the money. I don't feel that there's a need for a separate appropriation or to amend what we have been working on for months in this appropriation ordinance.
Yeah, I appreciate and I fully support, as this whole body did, the idea of the citywide composting. We all voted that we were in support of working on that. Just as earlier in the year when we had our first council retreat and then our second council retreat talking about budget priorities, and everyone was encouraged to then work with the administration on those priorities and explain what it is you wanted and get it in the budget. And then we've had, weeks of hearings and back and forth and substitutions and work on this. And I personally do not feel comfortable at this time working through a number of changes of things that when we have already had these recommended out of Finance Committee as proposed. I feel much more comfortable that we have gone through that. We've had conversation with the administration, with the Finance Department, with each other about what is proposed, what was recommended out of Finance for adoption as part of our budget process. And then we're going to continue, and you'll see later on the docket, the conversation about our debt and our bans. So we will be continuing to have those conversations that all affects our budget. I just think that having gone through that whole process, now going back adjusting one little thing here can affect another big thing there. So I would feel much more comfortable that we move forward with what was proposed, what was recommended out of Finance Committee at this time. Councilwoman Strubik.
Thank you. Huge fan of composting. Been doing composting in my backyard for probably 16 or 17 years, and I am very confident that we will have citywide composting in Lakewood. I'm very confident of that. I'm not set on $50,000 at this point. Maybe it's $75,000. Maybe it's $25,000. I haven't seen the details that we so regularly have on all of these types of projects. So I would like to see us just wait on this one a little longer. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add too that as I think Vice President Baker mentioned, we can always, and Director Mahoney and I have discussed, we can always amend our appropriations. So, Council could introduce legislation in the new year to appropriate these funds, and I could fully see that happening and being adopted once we have a clear plan of exactly how much it would cost, what it is for, and who it's going to. So I would happily support
Madam Chair. So to answer the Finance Director's question, which is a good one, what would the funds be for? It would be an appropriation for amount not to exceed. So it could be a nickel. It could be $25, it could be $50,000, but it couldn't be $50,001 penny. And then there would be some corresponding contracting authority, and that would be it. And that would also be no different than anything else in our budget, which is proposed on a routine and customary basis by the administration. What happens is all the details that the Council President correctly points out are important get developed all the time on a weekly and monthly basis by the administration. And the only difference here is that we're adding something to the list and providing for the financial capacity and the contracting authority to do it. And so the it and all the detail would still need to come and can and would and should come in the spirit of what we've all been saying, and that work would continue in all the detail that apparently hasn't been fully shared between everyone here. That's all still to come, and there's nothing wrong or improper about the concept of City Council providing for capacity to pursue another initiative. So I guess, Council President, I'm trying to speak to your question too, which is that there's nothing incomplete about this. It's just saying we're going to begin an initiative with an allocation reserved for a purpose X or Y or Z. Okay, and so I'm going to conclude my remarks. I guess I'm interested in hearing other council members in the vote. I mean, council can work its will. If there's not interest, great, but there's 4 council members who could support this. I'm hearing concerns by 3.
Vice President Baker.
So I guess on the 4th. And so reiterating what some of my, or what then, I'm bad at math, so that's why you're the finance chair, I guess. And so on this particular issue, I also, along with my other colleagues who supported the resolution in favor of composting, support composting in the city of Lakewood. Usually we're the first one in Northeast Ohio to do things like this, but it turns out we're the 3rd or something on this one. So I'd like us to get it off the ground as quickly as possible. One thing I don't like to do as a matter of course, as a representative and a person with a fiduciary duty on behalf of the city to account for our budget, is to make decisions on the floor without having to fully consider exactly what the ramifications may be. I understand sometimes we're required to do that. In this instance, I don't think I am. And so I want to have citywide composting in Lakewood. I will do what I can as a council member to support citywide composting in Lakewood. I do think that procedures and policies matter. And even if we would have had this discussion in Finance Committee and talk about it as part of the substitute ordinance that we put forward, I would have been more comfortable with supporting it. On the floor of full council, outside of the Finance Committee, I feel even less comfortable supporting it. That does not say anything about how I feel about citywide composting. It has everything to say about what I feel about the separation of powers between the legislators, the appropriators, and the people who implement. In my day job, I'm an implementer. And if the board I work for appropriated money but didn't really tell me how to implement it, I'd be a little bit miffed. And so I want to be conscious of the implementers here. That said, there is custom that Lakewood has typically done, and there's what 4 votes on this dais can do. And so if 3 of my colleagues along with then that's what's going to happen, because that's the way government works and that's the way power works. But I will say is, if my colleagues introduce an amended appropriation in the first meeting of January and we send it to committee and we talk about it, then I'd be in more of a position to support that. But this evening I am not, so thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? All right. So yes, and it's, just, I think that's well said, Vice President Baker, and as well as that this is one motion, it's not this specific issue, it's the process. And again, in the new year, I'd be happy to support amending the appropriations for this allocation. So there's no further discussion on this motion. All those in favor, actually, Councilman Bullock, can you restate your motion one more time so we're clear on what it is?
Thank you, Madam President. The motion is to move to amend 33-2025 Exhibit A to add $50,000 to the amount appropriated to the general fund and to increase the dollar figure listed after totals by the same amount.
All right. Let's do a roll call.
Vice President Baker?
Nay.
Councilman Block?
Yes.
Councilman Evans?
Yes.
President Keppel?
Nay.
Councilwoman Marks?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hamilton Steiner?
Yes.
Councilmember Streebig?
Nay.
That motion passes.
All right. I will then move to adopt.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Bullock.
there's an accompanying motion that would make sense given the earlier motion to amend Exhibit B. If you didn't entertain a motion.
I think we'll have to.
Move to amend 33-2025 Exhibit B to add $50,000 to the amount appropriated for planning development other, striking, increasing the corresponding division totals and fund totals throughout Exhibit B by the same amount. I'll repeat that. Move to amend 33-2025 Exhibit B to add $50,000 to the amount appropriated for planning and development other, and to increase all corresponding division totals and fund totals throughout the Exhibit B by the same amount. So if I don't know if we can display on screen.
Director Mahoney.
Yeah, can I just have one comment? So with this passage, if you're increasing $50,000 to the expenditures, we will have an unstructurally balanced budget. I just want council to be aware of that. That's
And to clarify to you, that would impact our discussions and potential Moody's rating if we have a structurally imbalanced budget.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Bullock.
corresponding motion that would address what the administration just raised.
Okay. Would you care to describe that motion?
Yeah, it's right here. But it's not part of this motion, unless you'd like to entertain.
Well, this is exactly why I didn't want to do this on the floor at the last meeting of council, is because it isn't about which things we support. It's about maintaining a structurally balanced budget and our financial responsibility and our bond rating so that we can afford to get the bonds to fix the roads in the city. And so this is, once we start messing with one thing, we have to mess with all of it, which is why, we specifically did not want to do this, and have said multiple times we didn't want to do this at this last meeting. So I think
it's inaccurate, though. I don't think it is going to be structurally unbalanced. I'm not saying your statement is inaccurate. I'm responding to the concern that was raised.
Okay. So I guess, given the previous motion, Director Mahoney, can you explain what would have to happen in order for, I guess, for this to not be a structurally unbalanced budget, in your
You would
opinion?
have to decrease another budget line. So then, in essence, ordinance 33, 2025 would have to have the same line balance at the, for general fund at the end. And again, I'm not sure if this is necessary. It's $50,000 that I don't know what it's for, again, but we have a plan in the planning department to work on this project already. So I'm not quite sure why you would appropriate $50,000, risk our Moody's rating by having an unstructurally balanced budget. And I'm confused, to be honest.
So I guess the question before council is where we're taking this money out of in order to maintain a structurally balanced budget. Councilman Bullock.
Okay, Madam Chair, so we're on a different motion right now. That's a different issue. There's a motion that can be made to address that issue, though. So I think the path for the council right now would be to make a second amendment to Exhibit B, which maybe could have been pulled in the previous vote, and then afterwards consider an amendment to address the structural balance issue, which I won't get into right now, but it can be dealt with.
I guess it's,
Again, can we just reiterate some of the issues that are causing here? Because I would veto anything that would provide a structurally imbalanced budget. And I'm looking at the charter now. That needs to be addressed at the next regular meeting. And so now we're beginning to have issues with funds for next year. This is creating a dangerous level for our finances here at the city. Over $50,000 for composting, which we've all agreed is a priority and have all discussed working on into the year next year. So I just want to reiterate that I firmly believe that we should pass the legislation as it was approved out of the Finance Committee, which, Councilman, you are the chair of, that we've had months of discussion on, and work in the new year to discuss composting.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, I understand that the motion to potentially address making this structurally balanced with the 50,000 is on a different ordinance, but I don't think we can move off of this ordinance without understanding what that would be.
Madam President, if I may, so a couple thoughts. First, I understand that this is apparently redlining everybody, and maybe after disposal of this proposal for composting, we take the approach that you and the Council Vice President and the administration request, which is to consider other changes after January 1st. So happy to do that. Secondly, since nobody seconded the motion on 33-25 Exhibit B, we could move to considering an offset, okay? And that would be, I guess I'd like to ask the Finance Director. Finance Director, the $277,500 is proposed from the general fund to be allocated to capital, correct?
Okay, so.
That's
so,
option one, and
to
option
clarify
two is
your
the Economic
email,
Development Fund.
Councilman Bullock, yeah, you had, all right, so 277,500 is miscellaneous, like lawnmowers and, I don't know, like
I think I followed.
tractors and things like that within the operating budget. So if you're going to reduce that, tell me what lawnmower you don't want us to buy.
Okay, second question is the Economic Development Fund account is itself in the general fund, and obligating a portion of that does not alone make the change. In other words, you can reserve a portion of the amounts that you yourself project to have at the year end in 12 months from now, and that is not a.
That is not an appropriation. So as I said, planning has already planned on working on this. It's included in that economic development monies. So I don't believe there is a need for a motion by council. We understand that it's a priority, and the administration's
So I'm just
planning to work on it.
Understood. Just trying to narrowly get clarification on the point that you made, which is for the structural balance requirement to be satisfied, if the allocation was going to come from the Economic Development Fund, which is already projected to be in surplus
So,
at year end, and that's already in the general fund.
so in essence, what you're saying is appropriate $50,000 from a line that's already appropriated. So it's already in there. And then your other two.
So would that then therefore resolve your concern about the structural balance?
Yes,
saying
but there's
we're-
no need to appropriate an additional $50,000.
Because
what I'm
the
saying.
Economic Development Fund's already appropriated?
It is reserved funds. Yes, so
Can you describe the difference?
at the end of the year, we will encumber some funds to be used in 2026. And so, and so it's in essence appropriated in 2026, 2025 for use in future years.
Okay,
there's no
just
need for
Repeat
council
that
to-
one more time, so I follow, because I think.
At
I
the
think
end
you
of
just resolved it.
2025, we will reserve funding that can be used in future years. So it's 2025 appropriation that can be used in 2026. So no need to amend 2026.
So the
appropriation.
1.5 million year-end balance is already encumbered by the legislation we just approved and is available for use in '26.
Yes,
Okay, so your point therefore, I think I follow better, which is that the appropriation would be redundant.
that's correct.
Okay. All right, that was a helpful clarification. So in other words, it's already paid for, and there is no structural imbalance, so we don't have to worry about that issue. Now, I do.
Yeah,
So the concern was, Madam President,
Yes.
that using $50,000 would tip the proposed budget into imbalance. And what
yeah.
I'm hearing is.
Yes, but Councilman, your motion was to appropriate
To add to that.
50,000
I do
more.
understand that, right.
And you cannot do that.
I understand what you're saying.
Or you
So
should not do
You're saying
that.
that the motion we recently approved is redundant because there's already funds appropriated and available. So the only difference then is that there should be contracting authority and not an appropriation, if council is so interested, which is a different ordinance.
Right, but, so we
therefore
we don't want to add $50,000 to what is already,
That's correct.
so we,
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we strike the previous motion, or I can read. So I'd like to move to amend 33-2025 Exhibit A to reduce by $50,000 the amount appropriated for the general fund, and to reduce the dollar figure listed after totals by the same amount.
can we just, I just want clarification that that does in fact undo the previous motion. So is that, can we just move to rescind the previous motion, Director Vargo?
Yes, Council President, that would be the easiest thing, and I'm thinking like everybody on the fly here, but yes.
Okay. So if that's sufficient, I'll move to, okay, thank you, Councilman Bullock, and I will second to rescind the previous motion. And we should, I guess, probably do a roll call again.
Vice President Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
President Keppel,
Yes.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton Steiner,
Yes.
Councilmember Strebig.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right. So then, and thank you for that, your expertise, Director Mahoney. So we are back to the version that originally passed out of finance. So I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and I'll just add that, as discussed, there's already money planned and a plan for composting. We'll continue to work on that. I for one, am very committed to that, as all of council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to adopt, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, substitute ordinance 34, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor, the director of public works, the director of law, the director of finance, and our purchasing manager to enter into contracts for professional services and to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of repair, maintenance, and operating supplies, services, and equipment as authorized by the 2026 appropriation ordinance and the administrative code of the city with the lowest and best bidder or bidders, or as otherwise provided by law.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, substitute ordinance 35, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the director of public works, the director of law, the director of finance, and our purchasing manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the administrative code for the contracts listed below, not to exceed the specified amounts shown without separate resolution of council.
I'll move to amend by replacing with the version recommended out of Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And next, I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, substitute ordinance 36, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor, the director of public works, the director of law, the director of finance, director of planning and development, and our purchasing manager to enter into service contracts in accordance.
Councilman Bullock.
So in the spirit of the previous discussion, it can be brief. Council could consider a motion to add contracting authority since the funds are already available and appropriated for up to $50,000 for composting initiative, and I have a motion drafted for consideration if there's interest in that. That would not automatically result in spending. It would just make available the contracting authority. That would amount to some indication of prioritization for that purpose. Unfortunately, I don't think it's accurate that there are funds for this, unless that was a kind of a handshake agreement between the administration. But previous to this discussion, the intent was to maybe find grant funds and not necessarily to obligate city funds. So that's the live conversation. If we were to consider a motion to add contracting authority after this or substitute to this from the version on screen, that would be some indication of priority.
Yeah, I think, this is the version that Dr. Mahoney and Mr. Wyman worked on at our request with the list of programs. So, it's probably, I don't see a great deal of harm in adding that. And in fact, it would indicate that council priority. So, Director Mahoney, is that correct?
That'd be fine.
Yeah. And also, $50,000, it would be under the Board of Control amount.
If it was 50,000 and 1 penny, it would go to Board of Control.
So if we do end up with 75,000 like Cleveland Heights, then we would need to, anyway, neither here nor there. So, Councilman Bullock, do you want to make that motion?
I'd be happy to after, I think there's a substitute motion first.
Yes, actually. So first, I will move to amend by replacing with the version recommended out of Finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And then Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to amend proposed ordinance 36-2025 to insert after street resurfacing program $900,000, a new line reading composting initiative $50,000, and to increase the dollar figures listed after service contracts by $50,000. That's the motion. It would make easier to follow if the amended version were on screen. I don't know if that's possible.
Should be in the. Should be.
36-2025. Proposed substitute. Yeah. So if you scroll to the next page, Mr. Baker. So the motion would be move to amend 36-2025 to insert after street resurfacing program $900,000 after that line. A new line reading composting initiative, $50,000. And to increase the dollar figure listed after service contracts by $50,000. That's just the total at the top, so that the totals carry out.
Great. Okay. I will second that motion. Any further discussion?
I'll just note, Madam President, that's under the service contract as originally proposed, which was 675. So even at 56825, it's lower than the original ordinance.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. And then I will move to adopt as amended. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 10, Ordinance 37, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1, 2026, to provide for creating positions and rates of pay for full-time and certain part-time annual salaried employees and hourly rate employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement in the several departments, divisions, and offices of the city, including Chief of Fire, Chief of Police, Civil Service Commissioners, and superseding all prior salary ordinances.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 11, Ordinance 38, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1, 2026, amending Section 14908 vacation, Section 14910 holidays, and Section 14911 sick leave accumulation of the Lakewood codified ordinances to allow the accrual of vacation for employees at a faster rate, increase the maximum vacation that can be earned, add Veterans Day to the list of paid city holidays, and to increase the conversion of sick time upon separation of employment with the city.
Move to amend by replacing with the version in Granicus.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And then I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 12, Ordinance 29, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1, 2026, amending Section 12953 Petty Cash Fund and 12954 Operational Cash Funds of the codified ordinances to better meet current needs for both petty cash and operational cash within the departments of the city.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Do we have a substitute?
Yeah, I believe there's a substitute, so we may need.
Okay. I'll rescind that motion. First out. Do we have a?
No.
There were so many. This was the petty cash, right? It's the.
Yeah, so you keep your motion.
Okay, all right, and I will not rescind my motion.
I will keep my second. Yeah.
So, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. I was going to move, without objection, item 13 to the end, but I see that the subject of item 14 has left, given the lengthiness of this discussion. So I think we'll get through these next ones truly quickly. I did think we were going to get through everything else on the agenda quickly, but I really do think we'll get through these so we can save item 13 for the end without objection. Sure. Yeah, we'll just keep them in order.
Item 14, Resolution 2025-76, a resolution to honor Lakewood Community Services Center Executive Director Trish Rooney and convey the community's enduring gratitude for 17 years leading the agency with exceptional vision, compassion, and steadfast devotion to Lakewood's most vulnerable residents.
I will first move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and unfortunately, I see that Chief Executive Rooney has left this evening, but I will note, so this resolution honors Trish Rooney. As the resolution notes, Lakewood Community Services Center existed before Trish, but I think it's extremely difficult for many of us to imagine it without her. For the past 17 years, Trish's tenacious advocacy, strategic planning, financial expertise, and strong leadership has established LCSC as a bedrock in the community, a vital and recognized resource for our community's most valuable citizens. I started on council in February of 2020, and less than a month later, we as a community were facing an unprecedented challenge with COVID-19, causing uncertainty about neighbors' income, housing, and food security. Trish led LCSC through crucial transformation of services to adapt and meet the needs of our neighbors, and worked with the city to keep our neighbors housed and fed. I had the opportunity to tour LCSC's new headquarters, the beautifully transformed former Youth Services building. Trish's joy at what they had been able to accomplish was palpable. Throughout her tenure, she has consistently strengthened the organization and worked to improve service to our Lakewood community. Thank you, LCSC Executive Director Trish Rooney, for 17 years of incredible service to our community. Any further discussion? Vice President Baker.
Thank you, Madam President. And Trish Rooney is a tough lady, and she really did a tremendous job for an organization that was quite small when she started there. And I think she, quintupled or times 20 their kind of capacity in what they do. And I think it's an organization like that. Lakewood is a community of extreme wealth and extreme need. We have both here in this town. And I think what Trish was able to do through her stewardship was, if you look at that board, it's a lot of people that work at some pretty big organizations that have means. And she understands that there's a social contract in Lakewood that if you have means, you need to give to the folks in your community that don't. And I think she did a good job of kind of pushing that forward as the mission of the organization. And look at where they're at now. So the next executive director, while they have big shoes to fill, they certainly have nicer shoes to sit in than they did previously. The old building they were in was a little rough, but they still did the work. Now they're in a more modern space, and they've kind of streamlined their operations in a way that will bear fruit for those in our community that need help for the next 50 to 100 years. So I wish Trish was here. She's not. I'm sure I'll catch up with her afterwards, but really appreciate her service to our community.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilwoman Striebeck.
Thank you. Food for the hungry, shelter for the homeless, and safety for the fearful. I cannot think of any more noble work. Thank you, Trish, for serving our community for 17 years with a smile and extended hand. You will be greatly missed. Best wishes to you on your next adventure.
Thank you. We do also have an e-comment from Director Berry, who unfortunately is ill this evening, but Human Services Director Berry has worked closely with Trish and noted, all that she has accomplished. So thank you, Director Berry, for that. Councilman Bullock.
Just echoing what all of you have been saying. LCSC has been a vital partner and is in our budget, proposed budget, or just passed budget for the coming year to continue to provide homelessness prevention and food assistance and casework services. And as Councilman Baker said, that helps make Lakewood a successful and affordable community for a big portion of our community. And without that, we would be less diverse. Secondly, Trish personally is highly expert and has been a source of strategic insight and technical answers and knowledge to me over the years. I really appreciate that and respect that. So she'll be a big loss, have big shoes to fill, but I think she's leaving the organization in good hands, or in a strong position to continue, and that's a wonderful legacy.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Right. We don't have anyone signed in to speak, I think. I'm not seeing anyone. Okay. All right. So on the motion to adopt the resolution, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 14, communication from President Keppel regarding process to fill soon-to-be vacant Ward 4C on council.
Dear colleagues, on December 1st, our friend and colleague Cindy Marks announced that she will resign from the Ward 4 Office of Council to pursue an exciting new chapter of life that will prevent her from continuing her service after December 31st, 2025. With the Ward 4 Office of Counsel being vacant starting January 1st, 2026, the following resolution proposes to appoint a yet-to-be-named individual to serve out the remainder of the unexpired term, which ends December 31st, 2027. Following Councilwoman Marks's announcement, the council office has been accepting applications for the Ward 4 position and will continue to do so until the deadline. Per the charter, an applicant must be a city resident for at least 1 year, a registered Lakewood voter, and live in Ward 4 to qualify for consideration. I also recommend that applicants review the attached job description and determine if they have the time, skills, knowledge, and experience to meet the expectations of the demanding and public-facing role. Interested and qualified individuals must submit a cover letter and resume in PDF format to the Clerk of Council. Optionally, candidates may also coordinate letters of support to be sent to the council office. All letters should contain the sender's name and address. Applications and letters of support will be accepted until January 2nd, 2026 at 12 p.m. Council will meet in Committee of the Whole on Monday, January 5th to review the applications and establish the next steps in the selection process. I look forward to an open and deliberative process to select the most qualified individual to represent the people of Lakewood. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 16, Resolution 2025-77, a resolution to take effect immediately appointing one person to the Ward 4 seat on Lakewood City Council for the remainder of the 4-year term ending December 31st, 2027.
Move to refer to Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 17, communication from President Keppel regarding City Hall space considerations and timeline update.
This is a it was a big file, but the letter's not that long. But dear colleagues, I'm writing to provide a follow-up to my attached October 20th communication and subsequent November 17th Committee of the Whole presentation from Weber Murphy Fox and Project Management Consultants regarding City Hall space options and estimates, also attached. The presentation presented high-level conceptual cost estimates for 3 options, as well as projected cash flow needed for each option summarized below. The administration has expressed a desire to use $1.5 million from the Land Acquisition Fund to purchase the Warren Road building and include $16.5 million in the city's 2026 bond anticipation notes for a renovation of the Warren Road building. Page 160 of the budget book also reflects an additional $5 million in 2027 and $3 million in 2028 and indicates an estimated cost of criteria architect of 2026 and 2027 to be $1.8 million. Each year, the city's bond council comes before City Council to discuss the city's debt and the impacts of proposed bans. Because the city plans to go out for a bond rating this year, the Finance Department has requested that the bans legislation be adopted by February 17th. Working backwards from this date and considering that it will be important for the new Ward 4 council member to be included in the interwoven topics of the city's debt, rating, and proposed bans, and the administration's proposed City Hall plan details, I propose the following timeline and process. And I lay out the times there essentially so that we have time to select and swear in our new council member, hear from the Bonds Council, as well as the administration about their plans. Just a little update here, just based on the availability of the Bonds Council, we'll actually be hearing from them on January 26th now, but we'll reserve February 2nd still for additional conversation as needed with the administration. I encourage City Council members to review the attached presentation and the information in the shared folder that Director Byington set up for us. To ensure a productive conversation that will help Council make an informed decision, I suggest that each Council member compile a list of critical questions that you will need answered in order to make this significant financial and operational decision and send them in advance to the administration. Sincerely. So I will move... I'll just move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 18, communication from President Keppel regarding council appointments to Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board.
Dear colleagues, this letter serves to make official the following reappointments to the Lakewood Animal, and new appointment actually, to the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board. Because of the longstanding service and leadership of these members, two of the members, one is new, Lee Stevens, who I'll be appointing. LaSwab is one of the city's most active and engaged volunteer boards. Please join me in congratulating all members on their reappointments and wishing them all the best for another meaningful and productive term of service on LaSwab. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 19, communication from City Planner Sophia Zellas regarding acceptance of Neighborhood Opportunity Grant Award, Healthy Lakewood Foundation 2026 Tree Giveaway Program.
Director Byington.
Thank you, President Keppel and members of council. The City of Lakewood is once again partnering with the Tree Advisory and Education Board to host the 3rd annual Tree Giveaway Program. This year, 400 trees will be given out in total, with 200 being distributed at both spring and fall events. The Tree Giveaway Program provides Lakewood residents with the opportunity to receive a free native tree for planting at home. The trees are container grown in 3-gallon pots and grown to 4 to 5 feet tall. They are small enough to easily transport and plant, yet large enough to get a good start towards establishing the tree on the resident's property. The City of Lakewood has been awarded $7,500 through the Neighborhood Opportunity Grant from the Healthy Lakewood Foundation in support of the 2026 tree giveaway. This letter serves to formally thank the Healthy Lakewood Foundation and notify Council of our acceptance of their grant award that will help grow Lakewood's tree canopy, advance sustainable efforts, and positively impact Lakewood residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And this is a fantastic program, and we appreciate the Planning Department support, the Public Works support, and the support of Healthy Lakewood Foundation. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 20, communication from Assistant Planning Director Boss regarding Community Health Action Team Annual Report.
Director Byington.
Thank you, President Keppel and members of City Council. Since our establishment by Resolution 2023-09, the Community Health Action Team has worked over the past 2 years to review, assess, and develop through committees those specific interventions recommended by the community and captured in the 2022 Community Health Needs Assessment Action Plan. As required by our charter, the attached annual report of activities is respectfully submitted. We request this communication and report be referred to a committee deemed appropriate by City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to refer to Health and Human Services.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 21, liquor permit notice regarding Couth Collective, 17106 Detroit Avenue.
And we have the report showing no statutory reason to object. Thank you, Chief and Director Vargo. So as our custom, go to the ward council member, which in this case is Vice President Baker.
I see no statutory reason to object.
All right, so we'll move to file without objection.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And we're finally at the reason we're all here tonight, or many of us are here tonight. Item 13.
Item 13, Resolution 2025-75, a resolution to commend Cindy Marks for her exemplary public service as a member of Lakewood City Council.
Thank you. So I'm going to first move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. And as we go into discussion, I'll take that moment of privilege to go first. I had the pleasure of knowing Cindy Marks for many years. I knew of her as my stylish councilwoman at large, but when I began organizing as an activist, I saw her everywhere. And I realized how deeply invested she was in the community, not only as an elected official, but as a neighbor. One of my favorite memories of Cindy is from the Hate Has No Home Here rally that a few of us organized after the Charlottesville riots, and swastikas were spray painted on Lakewood sidewalks. Cindy was currently running for office, but she showed up not expecting to speak or to make it about her or her campaign in any way. Rather, she asked how could she help, and she did. Cindy's service mindset is apparent in her many contributions, not only serving on council, but also on Lakewood Arts Festival, the Beck Center for the Arts, the Lakewood Historical Society, Cleveland Public Theater, and Cleveland Stonewall Democrats. She's never stopped giving to the community, while she also took taking tireless and loving care of her beloved late husband, Jake, through his long illness. On a personal note, Cindy was one of the earliest voices urging me to seek the at-large appointment, even coming up with my re-election slogan before I'd run. She has been an outspoken advocate for LGBTQIA rights long before many elected officials were willing to take a stand. Councilwoman Marks, thank you for your service and friendship. While we are sad to lose you, we are so happy for you and for Ken, and we hope you enjoy wonderful adventures together in this next chapter. Other council members? Vice President Baker.
Thank you. And Cindy, I was thinking back, I don't know if you remember meeting me, but the first time I ever met you, I remember vividly, it was at the Ranger Cafe, and it was a Lakewood Rangers Education Foundation lunch. And you came up to me and you said, I look like a movie star. So that stuck with me. So you have a way of making people feel well received and warm. And that's the point of that statement, not to say that you called me a movie star. And then another distinct memory I have is at our council retreat, you talked about kind of the way you analyze things and the way you analyze people, and you talked about it from a sales perspective. And I think a lot of people think of salespeople as like, oh, they're trying to sell you something you don't want. But actually my sister, it reminds me a lot of this, she's in sales, and the way she approaches sales is by creating relationships and warmth with people, and really understanding what they want and what they need, and not what you think they want and what they need. And so in all my times of working with you, you've always listened more than you've talked, and then you've let people develop solutions, and then you help them accomplish those solutions. And it's taught me as a council member and as a father and as a person, a professional, to listen more and maybe not tell people what their problem is and tell people what their solution is, but actually listen to them and help them find that solution once they've identified the problem. And so it's been such an honor to work with you. I treasure you as a colleague and as a friend, and I'm so excited for your next chapter in your life, and thank you for your service to Lakewood. There's no higher calling in life than public service, and you've devoted your life to it, and so you deserve some time to go have some fun too, so thank you.
Councilwoman Striebeck.
Thank you. Last Saturday, a young man greeted me, congratulated me, and asked me when I was moving to Shaker Heights. This is not the first time, nor will it be the last time, that people confuse the East Side Cindy's. Yeah. Please know that there is no one that I would be more honored to be confused with than you. Your selflessness is admirable. Through easy and difficult times, you have been a pillar of grace, dignity, and common sense. A role model for council members across the region, you have been a voice of thoughtful consideration, truth, and inclusion. I'm thankful for this time that we've served together, and sincerely thank you for your support, encouragement, and guidance. But this is not goodbye. This is a happy ending to another book in the encyclopedia of your life. I'm thrilled, truly thrilled, for your new beginnings and anxious to see what you'll do next. I wish you the very best of luck and look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Councilwoman Hamilton Steiner.
Sorry, let me start over again. Councilwoman Marks, congratulations on the next chapter of your life. You deserve all of the happiness coming your way. Thank you for your commitment to public service and for your advice and guidance to me along the way. Even when what you said I did not want to hear, but I knew then and I know now it was the truth. I'm just sad we do not get to work together longer, and have only had a year and some change, counting my work in the community outside of council, of having worked together and knowing you. Cheers to you, and I hope to still see you around at various shared interests, events, functions, and activities. I'm not letting you get away that soon, because I need to hear some more truth from you.
Councilman Evans.
I'll keep it brief. I think Tom's going to go last, so. Now, Cindy, we go way back. We got our, through our love of public arts and the arts in general. And we did some really cool things on a grassroots level in the city many years ago. And you've been just a really good friend, a mentor for so long. I'm sad I didn't get to spend more time on council with you because I really cherish you as a colleague, but more as our friendship. I mean, you're just such a great and loving person. It's so nice to have a mentor like you. When I was sworn in, it was just one of those nice little moments when I came up to the dais. It's a little intimidating, first time coming up here, and just patted the seat and said, "I get to sit next to you." And so I'll be sad. I'll be excited to move over one chair, but but I'm sad I won't get to sit next to you any longer. It just made a real big difference in my young life as a public official. So thank you for everything you've done for Lakewood and personally what you've done for me. And just I wish you absolutely nothing but the best going forward.
All right, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Council President. Cindy, what can I say? You've been a long-serving colleague, friend, leader, know the community deeply. You're giving. We've seen tough times and seen them through together, and that's come and gone in a couple different waves and issues. And so you've persisted throughout all the city business, but really, on the resolution, it says in one of the whereas clauses, all the boards that you've served on, Lakewood Arts Festival, Beck Center for the Arts, Lakewood Historical Society, Cleveland Public Theater, Cleveland Stonewall Democrats. We could add Cuyahoga Women's Democratic Caucus. I'm sure we're missing double that because your sense of leadership is not just governmental, it's community-wide, it's people, it's connections like everyone else has said. And just for those who don't know, although I suspect you do, Cindy has this unique blend of strength and compassion, assertiveness and willingness to listen and team up and persist. And so one of the things that we owe you as a thank you gift is allocation for public art, especially performing art in budget year 2026, we hope. We'll see. But that's a perfect example of Cindy still, when she could be doing something different, she's constantly looking to connect, empower, and lift up others. And so I just appreciate that so much. That, if the old saying about, they come for you, they come for me, and nobody was left to stand up for me, not on Cindy Marks's watch. She stands up, and she makes damn well sure that Lakewood's looked after and people who need an ally are looked after. So your heart and integrity are second to none, and we'll miss you, and we're congratulating you and Ken on your new chapter, and I'm glad the two of you have found one another and are going to enjoy the east side, but please come to the west side too.
Thank you.
Much love, Cindy.
Mayor George.
Thank you, and I will keep it short because I guess I am the last one. But I just want to truly say, Cindy, how much it's been a pleasure, truly, to work with you the last few years. We've always had such good dialogues, good discussions, and I think it's truly benefited the Lakewood community. And I truly wish you the absolute best in this next chapter because you certainly deserve it. And I do have a mayor's proclamation for you as well. Just something special from me, just acknowledging you and your hard work over the last few years. And again, wishing you the best in the future.
Thanks so much, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll speak.
Councilman Marks.
Thank you. This is a difficult night for me. I love this city so much. But I love Ken more. I feel so lucky to have served the city for as many years as I have. And I have to thank Mayor George's father, for introducing me to the city. So it's ironic that I'm leaving with you as mayor, but I'm so grateful that he first encouraged me to be active in the city, and I do love this city. It has a lot more coffee shops than Shaker Heights. But I do feel so blessed also that at this time in my life that I should meet somebody and fall in love, and I'm able to start all over again, recreating my life with somebody who has the same values and commitments that I have. I couldn't be luckier to have found Ken. You know, and we both have lost the loves of our life. Of course, most of you knew Jake, and he was the love of my life, and I never thought I would find somebody again. But, you know, one of my friends said to me, Ken was like a star that dropped out of the sky and landed in your lap to create a cushion for you to fall into, and I believe that. He's a good man. We're going to have a great life together, even though it's going to be on the east side. But I'll be back, and you know, I will stay active on the Lakewood Arts Council and however else I can in the city. But it's been a real pleasure to work with all of my colleagues, and it's been inspiring to see so many of you come up in ranks in politics. And unfortunately, I started politics much later in my life, and often regretted that. If I was younger, I would have had more opportunities. But to see so many people who desire to be active in the city and really want to make a difference, like you, Angelina, you just, you're great on council, and you really care a lot about the city and know so much about Ward 4, which we both love. And I know that you'll see a big difference there. But I will miss you all, and but I'll be back. And thank you so much for being so kind and thoughtful to me over the years. I appreciate it so much. Thanks.
All right. And following all that, we do have someone signed in to speak. Jason Frederick, if you want to come on up.
Can you hear me? Great. We'll be reiterating many of the same sentiments, but I wanted to get a chance to just say thanks. Members of council, city officials, mayor. My name is Jason Frederick. I live here on Alameda Avenue. When I moved here in 2013, I became immediately interested in the history of this town. And one of the first resources I made use of was Madison Library, where I found several books on the history of Lakewood. I found information about the Connecticut Western Reserve and the arrival of Rockport's first pioneering residents. There were stories of Detroit Road being a Native American hunting trail, tales from rowdy inns on the old plank road, and a terrific little book about how the streets got their names, like who was Nicholson, who was Bell, Bunce. And my interest in Lakewood's history led me quickly to want to know more about how the city was operating today. And so I started attending city council meetings, and this is when I first met Cindy Marks. She was then an at-large representative, but when she became our Ward 4 rep, I had so many questions for her, and she was so open and responsive and offered up context for many of the current initiatives, backstory and answers for all of my questions or questions my neighbors might have had that I had tasked myself with investigating. And not long after this, Cindy nominated me for the Public Art Advisory Board, and this was invaluable in teaching me how the government projects come into being from inception to discussion of budget concerns, to the process of voting and scheduling complications and implementation and completion, to impact and community response. And it's been a wonderfully enlightening experience for which I have her to thank, and I just can't thank you enough for that. In my experience, some people are door openers and some people are gatekeepers, and for me, Cindy has always, without question, been the former. She's been encouraging, supportive, and responsive every step of the way, and I'm just so grateful for that. With her resignation, we in Ward 4 are losing not only an engaged and conscientious representative, but a wonderful neighbor, the kind of person you want to be your neighbor and a good friend. That said, I'm an avid reader, and all of my favorite books, I've always wished they were a little longer, to have a few more pages, another swell or two. And when she told me she was getting married and moving to Shaker Heights, I was floored. Plot twist. Did anybody see that coming? Because I didn't see that coming. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. It's beautiful. And so, me and everybody else here are just so excited for you and wish you all the best as you add this and many, many more pages to your story. Thank you so much for everything. Thanks.
Well said. Did anyone else, that's the only person I have signed in to speak about Cindy. Did anyone else want to make public comment? Yep, come on up, Ken.
Hi. Man of the hour.
Your temporary loss is my blessing.
Aren't they just the cutest? All right, anyone else on this? All right, so with that, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2025-75, assuming its passage, which I do. We'll come down and do a picture. All who are here to celebrate Cindy, you're welcome to come up and join us in that picture, and we'll present her with the ceremonial resolution. And directors, if any of you want to join in as well, obviously. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All those in favor? Aye, and that motion passes. All right, we're going to come down for a photo.
I still think we can close all the roads the day she moves. So just like the roads are closed.
Closed.
Yeah, we're gonna have to like drone her out.
Lift her up on a helicopter.
Yeah.
Ever since this.
But she'll be back for Lakewood Arts
relationship
Festival
started,
meetings.
She has always been.
Or in a dim light or something.
And it was really, for me, very difficult to encouraged her to do anything.
I don't know if that's true.
And I said, you know, we want to find a house, we're going to put it together. She said, this is where I want to
Normally do it, but
Oh, shoot, I forgot to highlight Chad's comment. All right, we do technically still have a little bit more business. So we have public comment. Yeah. We're on to public comment. A lot of folks I see on this list that signed in have left, but one is still here. So Barb, if you want to come up, you know the drill, Barb Rhodes. And I think that's everybody who's still here to do public comment.
Good evening. I'm Barb Rhodes. I live at 1475 Grace Avenue. I've only been observing the council for about 2 years, so I'm not familiar with a lot of your customs, and I certainly don't know your bylaws. But it's frustrating to come to watch the council, having looked at the agenda and looked at the attachments, and see the council voting on amendments that were made in the committee meeting that was still going on at 7:30 without those amendments being described in any manner for the public who's watching either in person or on video to know what you're voting on. Maybe it's not important, but it just seems to me that perhaps it's something you might consider is just, you know, if there is an amendment that hasn't been published before the meeting, if it could be summarized when you make the motion to substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, and I apologize I missed you on the City Hall communication before. Yeah, it's a long. So, and I think that's good feedback, and often we do in the, if the committee happens on the same night as the night that we would potentially adopt, a lot of times in the committee report that happens that night, we describe what happened, but it is good feedback, I think, for us to, probably a good practice for us to describe those in detail. Sometimes they're more lengthy than others, and in this particular evening, we did go through them in detail in finance, but you're right that not everyone watching would have necessarily watched the finance committee meeting or been here for it, so good feedback. All right, that's everybody I have signed in for public comment. Who's still here? No one? No? Okay. All right, so announcements from council members.
Madam President.
Councilman Bullock.
So first, happy holidays to all. Best wishes in the snow. Clear your sidewalks. Also, don't slip on the ice, and hope you get some enjoyment. I will announce that I will follow the advice of colleagues and introduce in early January the set of proposals that was considered tonight. One was disposed of, but others weren't. I also heard feedback from one colleague that the list, as it was outlined, was just one council member, this council member's stab at trying to summarize what a whole body of council members worked on, and that's a valid point. So there should be an opportunity for more authors to, work on that together. I also want to thank everybody for the hanging in there and working through the process. I mean, sometimes we get a little bit outside of our comfort zone. Sometimes we get a little bit outside of a customary process. That isn't all bad, but I also did hear and wanted to acknowledge that there's feedback that some of my colleagues would prefer it differently, and so I want to respond to that and thank everybody for the endurance through tonight's process.
Thank you. And other council members? Councilwoman Strubing.
Thank you. Just your calendar update, everyone. December 21st, winter starts. Shortest day of the year, winter solstice. We all know the 25th is Christmas, and Kwanzaa begins the day after on the 26th. New Year's Eve, we know, and New Year's Day is coming up, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. Other announcements from council members? And on the topic of snow, thank you again to Public Works for your continuing hard work to keep our streets safe. Announcements from the administration. Oh, Chief.
Just one real quick one. I just want to thank the community. We had our Cram the Cruiser event this afternoon. It was a tremendous success. People walking into Giant Eagle came out, cash donations. People were going in, buying stuff, and bringing it out. We literally ran out of room in the cruisers. We brought 3 of them, so we will be giving a very, very good donation to the LCSC. So it was a good event.
Which ward has bragging rights?
I left too early. I had to come here, so the police department, I think, beat you all. We crammed 220 before we brought it. So, well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to the neighborhood officers also. That was a great initiative, and great to see with Timmy back, too. So, yeah, awesome. All right, any further announcements from the administration? All right, then no further business to come before council. Without objection, we are adjourned.